Chapter 178, Void Pass, just one drop of blood. You are not willing to even pay this insignificant price? Pu Yao said, his brow furrowing in discontent. Insignificant. Zuomo's voice was full of displeasure. Taking blood from me is insignificant? He then said decisively, this is not negotiable. Jingshi and talismans, how can they compare with my little life? Pu Yao propped his chin and thought momentarily before he said, how about this? I won't take your vital blood, but you have to give me the earth energy you get every day. Earth energy? Zuo was still for a moment, but he replied quickly. In his mind, he instantly connected it to the feeling of connectedness to the earth when he had been fighting with the blue-spiked crocodile. There was a problem. Pu Yao was very cunning. This was his goal. What is earth energy? He asked, knowing the result. But Pu Yao was a Yao thousands of years old. Even though Zuo tried to conceal it, the intelligent Pu Yao could find hints from the slight changes in his eyes. Pu Yao smiled, not disguising it. Emo have always thought that the Great Earth is the mother of all things. The power of the Great Earth is stronger than anything else. When they cultivate, they always attend to their communication to the Earth. You just have broken through to the first level of body cultivation. This level is called Mountain Physique. The level of Mountain Physique, you can now communicate with the Great Earth. As long as your feet are on the ground, you will have endless strength. Zuo listened carefully. Of course that crowd of idiot Emo doesn't understand anything profound. This method is simple and straightforward, very easy to start. Emo also descend from wild beasts. Compared to Xiuzha, they naturally are more connected with the earth. It is easy for them to start this method. But it is very unexpected to me that you have such talent in body cultivation. Earth energy is the power that comes from the earth. Zuo asked in response. Oh, it's not incorrect if you understand it that way, Pu Yao nodded. If I give the earth energy to you, that means my mountain physique would not progress? Zuo continued. He wasn't stupid. Right, Pu Yao continued to nod, calmly admitting it. No, Zuo shook his head. Pu Yao was puzzled. Why not? The mountain physique might be said to have the power of 10,000 elephants, but usually, it is very stupid. It is not even as effective as your sword formation. It's as far from the great thousand-leaf hands and little thousand-leaf hands. There's also so much Jingshi. Why don't you agree? Zuo smirked. I don't even know the power of the great thousand-leaf hands and little thousand-leaf hands yet, but I've personally experienced the power of the mountain physique. It is a very simple choice. Hearing this, Pu Yao was speechless. He had neglected the practicality of Zuo. However, to a Sky Yao that was thousands of years old, what problem would this pose? He quickly thought of a solution. If that's the case, this is very simple. The Great Thousand-Leaf Hands is split into 7 chapters. You are only able to cultivate 1 chapter. Of the Little Thousand-Leaf Hands, you are only able to practice 3 moves. I'll let you see half of the chapter of Great Thousand-Leaf Hands and teach you a move of Little Thousand-Leaf Hands for free. Definitely free, no additional conditions, Pu Yao promised. Okay, then give it, Zuo said unconcernedly. In his heart he had already decided that this time he would get one over Pu Yao. Freely learning half a chapter of Great Thousand-Leaf Hands and 1 move of Little Thousand-Leaf Hands. Then he would tell Pu Yao he still wouldn't agree, haha. Thinking how frustrated Pu Yao would be, he felt very good. Pu Yao didn't waste words, throwing the first half chapter of Great Thousand-Leaf Hands to Zuo. Zuo naturally did not refuse. As he daydreamed about Pu Yao's upcoming rage, he read the half chapter of Great Thousand-Leaf Hands. After a few short words, and Zuo's indifference flew away. He sunk into the text. Compared to the cryptic nature of embryonic breathing spiritual cultivation, the half chapter of Great Thousand-Leaf Hands was easy to understand, like a genius asking and responding to their own questions. It headed straight for the main topic right at the start, first describing how to control power. Mo used their body as a tool, continuously tempering it, and their power turning inside. With their action, they could destroy mountains and upturn oceans. Xiuzha primarily practiced Ling power. Ling power stored within their bodies would be guided by their channels, and was easy to use. Spiritual power was invisible, spread outside the body, controlled by the mind, but the difficulty to use it was high. Even though Yao were born knowing how to use their spiritual power, but there were different proficiency levels. High-level Yao could control the world with just a thought. After that was a mountain of questions regarding the consciousness. Zuomo's mind was deeply enchanted. Many of the questions in here were problems that had dogged him for a long time which he could not solve. His gaze unconsciously went down. This author replied to each of the questions. Their language was extremely simple to understand. Zuomo felt as though a mist had been lifted. The last conclusion it had was the consciousness was like a ball of mist, lacking a skeleton which caused it to become difficult to control. Mo primarily cultivated their body. Their entire skeleton, flesh, blood, and skin were pathways, easy to control. What spiritual power lacked was exactly this kind of pathways. They were naturally spread out. Only some high-level Yao had Yao seeds that could naturally function as base pathways. That was also why they were so powerful. The Yao did not lack for geniuses. They might not have had highly regarded bloodlines, but they could create new paths. This great thousand-leaf hands originated as one of these new paths. Like vine creating a net, one leaf per section, the leaf like a hand, 5 finger-like segments able to do tens of thousands of changes. Zuomo was drunk. He had never heard of this method before. It was very novel. Zuomo was not a Yao. Pu Yao had embedded a Yao seed and caused his control to increase, but that was nothing compared to the great thousand-leaf hands. It was on a completely different level. If he could successfully learn the great thousand-leaf hands, any formation would be able to reach its greatest potential in his hands. Other than that, it was also useful for forging and dan-making. Just as Zuomo hurried to keep reading, he suddenly stopped. The chapter half was finished. It was like an itch that being scratched in that sweet spot, and then the other suddenly stopped. He felt unspeakably uncomfortable. Damn it. Why did it stop there? Zuomo, who had been waiting to see Pu Yao frustrated, deeply felt what frustration was. No, he needed to control himself. He couldn't let Pu Yao win. Zuomo reluctantly took away his eyes, closing them to rest for a while. He slowly calmed down. Zuomo's mind became clear as he calmed. This was what Pu Yao always did. If he really made the transaction, then there probably were countless traps waiting for him ahead. Come. He said it repeatedly to himself inside, furiously telling himself to not fall for Pu Yao's trick. This kind of self-brainwashing finally had some effect. He decided to learn the first move of little thousand-leaf hands, before he decided. Hearing this, Pu Yao refreshingly nodded. Okay, I'll teach you the first move. Little thousand-leaf hands has 36 moves in total. The first move is one of the 2 most shallow and fundamental moves. Many of the other moves will be connected somewhat with these 2 moves. You have to be familiar with this one. Seeing Pu Yao act as though he was going to personally teach it, Zuomo's mind became alert. Pu Yao always boasted to the sky, but Zuomo had never seen him personally move. He instantly became excited now that the other was going to demonstrate his abilities. Great thousand-leaf hands and little thousand-leaf hands were created by an ancient sky Yao. The aim was to go against nature. Pu Yao's voice was full of respect. When a Yao is born, the achievements it can accomplish are mostly set. A Yao seed is formed naturally and is the source of a Yao's power. This sky Yao was born as the most normal of the little Yao, and became a sky Yao in the end. You don't really understand the Yao. What the Yao do is flow along with their natural order. It was only when that sky Yao appeared that people discovered it was possible to go against this natural order. From then on, Yao cultivation was split into with nature and against nature. You are learning that elders' moves today. Do not mar that sky Yao elder's name. Pu Yao's voice was stern and serious. Zuomo gaped inside, and was full of anticipation. From Pu Yao's explanation, it seemed that these 2 sets of methods had a great history. Watch carefully. As Pu Yao stopped talking, he raised his right hand. His right hand was long and snowy white, perfect in form, the bright red nails slightly curved and as sharp as a knife. He pointed with his index finger, the long crimson fingernail lightly sketching in the air. The movements were ethereal and gentle, flowing and pleasurable to the eye. The places that the blade-like fingernail passed A streak of blood curved and squiggled. In a blink, a profound bloody character took form in the air. Zuomo's pupils suddenly shrunk. He suddenly found that, starting from when Pu Yao's finger had started to draw, Zuomo's own consciousness had gone slightly out of control, as though Pu Yao's finger held a strange magnetism. He jumped in fright, and hurriedly controlled his mind. Even though he was trying to control his consciousness, the majority of his attention was used to watch Pu Yao. Pu Yao's spiritual power flooded the bloody character. The character seal suddenly became full and glistening as though it was alive. Zuomo felt as though he was suddenly jerked into an extremely strange world. There was no noise, no change. It was like time had completely stopped. Zuomo felt that his heartbeat had stopped, his blood stopped flowing, his muscles and hair stopped moving. An unknown amount of time later, this strange state flew away as though it was a dream. Zuomo finally felt shock. In a daze, he heard Pu Yao's slow and deep voice. The first move is called Void Pass. It does not halt time, it just maintains the laws that everything originally has, but at the same moment, it refuses all new laws, so you feel as though time has stopped. The two concepts are completely different. It only refuses change. The stronger your spirit is, the greater your control over your consciousness will be, and the larger the area you can control. However, if it is a strong change in the laws, you may not be able to stop it and the technique would break. Do not try to use it on other Xiuzha, unless the difference in cultivation is very great. Then what's the use? Zuomo heard himself ask instinctively. Hugh, you can use it on talismans. The Ling power on talismans usually is constantly flowing. The effect of interfering with that is very outstanding. Zuomo had received such a great blow that he seemed to have lost his soul in the following days. Pu Yao did not hurry him, looking very confident. The fifth day he finally thought it through and came to the Sea of Consciousness. Like normal, Pu Yao sat on the gravestone. His back to Zuomo. He still knew that Zuomo had come. A smug smile at the corner of his mouth. Zuomo's eyes were clear. Just as he prepared to speak, he saw the gravestone under Pu Yao out of the corner of his eyes, and suddenly stopped. Chapter 179. Gravestone. Written on the gravestone were the words, "Do as he asks." Zuomo had originally decided not to accept Pu Yao's tempting offer. Great thousand-leaf hands, and little thousand-leaf hands, enchanted him, but he still decided to refuse this transaction where it looked like he would benefit disproportionately. Pu Yao had not described the mountain physique in great detail, but Zuomo understood that the reason he had cultivated this quickly to mountain physique was all due to the gravestone. The Vajra Profound Sutra was not an outstanding scripture. The reason it was so effective was those 5 adjusted phrases from the Jade Scroll. Even though Pu Yao did not say much, he was quite scornful of the mountain physique in his tone. However, Zuomo could easily felt the great strength of the mountain physique. He had recalled that moment he broke through, savoring that feeling of strength flooding through his body. It was the first time he had so clearly tasted strength. Pu Yao's terrible reputation made Zuomo unable to believe him. No matter how much he was tempted by great thousand-leaf hands, and little thousand-leaf hands, it was clear that what Pu Yao gave looked sweet, but it wouldn't taste sweet when he ate it. Vajra Profound Sutra didn't have anything profound and was exactly suited to Zuomo's appetite. The fact he could unknowingly cultivate to mountain physique proved that he had talent in this area. Rather than gamble on the untrustworthy Pu Yao, it was better to persist with what he already had. He didn't want to think about progression to deeper stages. He believed that if he could reach the level he had experienced when he made the breakthrough, he would have some measure of protection in these troubled times. After thinking for a few days, and having finally made a decision, Zuomo ran to the Sea of Consciousness to prepare to refuse Pu Yao. But to his shock, he saw the words floating on the gravestone. A strange feeling rose inside Zuomo. It was like the gravestone under Pu Yao's ass was alive. This idea was truly too absurd, so absurd that even Zuomo felt that he had thought too much these past days, and was having a delusion. The words on the gravestone were large and eye-catching. It wasn't a delusion. How about it? Pu Yao's unconcerned voice suddenly sounded next to Zuomo's ear. Zuomo's heart jumped. He glanced and saw the words on the gravestone grow faint. In a blink, the eye-catching words had disappeared. Was this gravestone really alive? Zuomo thought and brushed off. And I've thought for a long time. If this gravestone was really alive, then... Suddenly, he recalled when he had first met Pu Yao and how he fell into that unconscious state. When he had been muddled, he had heard an ancient and stern voice. He had assumed that it was Pu Yao. Thinking about it now, that voice was stern and authoritative, and was completely different from Pu Yao's seductive and enchanting mannerisms. He had overlooked this discrepancy before because there was no one except Pu Yao in his sea of consciousness. When the Vajra Profound Sutra had appeared on the gravestone last time, it hadn't caused him to question his assumption. Do as he asks. These words, other than living beings with brains, no matter if it was the most outstanding talisman, it could not say such words. He felt the gravestone was alive. Zuomo's mind was furiously moving. Naturally, his speech could not keep up. This made him look especially dull today. Pu Yao furrowed his brows. And then? Zuomo instinctively answered, I still have to think. He ignored Pu Yao, sitting down on the ground. In any case, the words on the gravestone had already disappeared. Pu Yao was slightly surprised. If Zuomo entered the sea of consciousness, he should have decided. Had he just decided to change his mind now? He had interacted with Zuomo for a long time. Zuomo might be hesitant sometimes, but after he made a decision, he would never waver. The other was so stubborn and vicious, even he would gape. Why did he suddenly hesitate now? However, he would never have thought in his wildest dreams the gravestone under his bottom had gotten one over him. Zuomo decided to think. The gravestone should be alive. No, maybe there was something alive under the gravestone. Thinking about it now, the Vajra Profound Sutra had appeared on the gravestone when Pu Yao had been meditating. This time, the gravestone was opposing Pu Yao right in front of him. Did the gravestone and Pu Yao have animosity? Pu Yao usually sat on the gravestone. Previously, Zuomo had felt that Pu Yao was an undertaker. Thinking about it now, was more like Pu Yao was guarding it. Was there a powerful enemy sealed under the gravestone? And Pu Yao was so worried he personally guarded it? This guess was very rational. Zuomo felt that even if it wasn't any great hatred between them, the relationship between Pu Yao and the gravestone was definitely not good. Otherwise, the gravestone wouldn't have opposed Pu Yao twice. Thinking through this, Zuomo suddenly understood slightly what Pu Yao's aims were. Pu Yao needed the earth energy for something he did not state. Looking at it now, Pu Yao had offered this transaction directly for the mountain physique that Zuomo had just achieved. Zuomo suddenly didn't get it again. If Pu Yao and the gravestone really didn't have good relations, then Pu Yao could just stop him from practicing Vajra Profound Sutra. However, Pu Yao did not prohibit him from practicing Vajra Profound Sutra. If Pu Yao was targeting Zuomo's mountain physique, he had enough skill and methods to just take that. Pu Yao wasn't a generous person. This person always wanted to get even. Whoever he held a grudge against would quickly feel retribution from Pu Yao's machinations. Pu Yao would not let his enemies go and give them time to recuperate. As to Zuomo himself, he didn't feel he could affect Pu Yao in any way between the two enemies. The deeper he thought, the more puzzled Zuomo felt. He threw away thinking about the relationship between Pu Yao and the gravestone. What he needed to consider was which choice was most beneficial for him. Pu Yao's promises were not trustworthy in Zuomo's mind. Compared to that, he was more willing to believe the gravestone. The benefits from the gravestones, Vajra Profound Sutra, were real and tangible. There was no spectacular description, but true power, and that was more likely to persuade Zuomo. If he thought of Pu Yao and the gravestone as two people, his past experiences with Pu Yao were terrible, but his experience with the gravestone had been very good. Zuomo felt dejected. This clearly was going to slow down his body cultivation progress. So why did the gravestone want him to agree? Was there? Suddenly, an idea appeared in his mind. Did the gravestone have a solution? Zuomo suddenly became uplifted. It was possible. Otherwise, the gravestone certainly wouldn't want him to agree to Pu Yao's transaction. If the gravestone was not concerned with his cultivation progress, it wouldn't have passed him, Vajra Profound Sutra, in the first place. Zhuo believed that any action had an aim. The gravestone had its own aims in passing on the Vajra Profound Sutra, but he did not know it at the moment. But since it had a goal, then it wouldn't easily let its previous efforts go to waste. Otherwise there would have been no reason to pass on to him the Vajra Profound Sutra. If the gravestone had just taught him out of sheer pleasure, even Zhuo would not believe it. He couldn't guess the goal, but Zhuo could judge what was more beneficial to him. He decided to listen to the gravestone. Having made his decision, he started to think how the gravestone would give the solution. Thinking of the Vajra Profound Sutra, and the words that had floated there, he decided to visit the Sea of Consciousness more frequently in the future. After thinking it through, Zhuo stood and walked in front of Pu Yao. I've thought it through. Let's make the transaction. Your choice is very intelligent. Pu Yao's cold blade-like lips curved slightly. Zhuo caught a glimpse of this smirk, and felt that Pu Yao's smile carried some unusual content, as though it proved some of his speculations. The first chapter of Great Thousand Leaf Hands, and the first 3 moves of Little Thousand Leaf Hands. In his hands, Zhuo started to study them as though he was starving. Embryonic breathing spiritual cultivation was cryptic, and he still had barely progressed even now. The 2 spells had their own places that were hard to understand, but they were much easier compared to embryonic breathing spiritual cultivation. What was most surprising to Zhuo was that Pu Yao was willing to personally teach Little Thousand Leaf Hands. He took the chance to ask Pu Yao for clarification regarding the problems he encountered. He hadn't expected that Pu Yao to have changed his frugal attitude, and freely replied, and it could even be considered, very patiently. Zhuo was amazed. Such a good chance. If he didn't use it fully, then he was an idiot. Zhuo took the chance to go through everything he was usually puzzled by. After going through it all, he felt it was worth it even if there wasn't the 2 spells. This set of spells that Yao had about the spirit was more profound and wondrous than any jade scroll that he had ever read. It was like the difference between the cloud and earth. But making a transaction with Pu Yao meant one could never just simply enjoy. Accompanying it was always the pain of the flesh. Under Pu Yao's guidance, he quickly learned how to absorb earth energy from the ground. The earth energy of body cultivation and the art of earth energy that Zhuo cultivated shared the same name, but the 2 were completely different. The earth energy of art of earth energy was the energy nurtured from the soil, but the earth energy that Zhuo took in right now was a kind of weighty and concentrated power. The only similarity between the 2 was they were both nurturing and heavy. But what the art of earth energy nurtured was ling plants, and what the earth energy of body cultivation nurtured was his body of flesh. An attentive Zhuo found 2 reasons he could absorb earth energy. One was his body cultivation had reached mountain physique. The other reason was the Mo matrix. The Mo matrix that Pu Yao had carved onto Zhuo's body was wondrous in allowing his body to communicate with the earth. He somewhat understood now why Mo would primarily cultivate their body. It was because they were born with a Mo matrix, and were the children of the earth. When he was absorbing earth energy, it was so comfortable that he was intoxicated. Little by little, concentrated strength slowly moved into his body from his legs, nurturing every part of his body. He could feel the strength increasing in his body, a tranquility that he never felt before which was addicting. But the earth energy that he took in would be drawn out by Pu Yao in an instant, in a great form of torture. When the strength inside his body was extracted, his mind would blank for a short moment. When Zhuo's mind came back, weakness and the lack of strength would make him feel that he had an incurable disease. A strong sense of dizziness and nausea destroyed his appetite, and his interest in anything else each time Pu Yao drew out the earth energy. He only had one thought, to faint and sleep. However, he didn't sleep. He needed to cultivate. Chapter 180. Great Thousand Leaf Hands. What Zhuo cultivated first was the Great Thousand Leaf Hands. The second half of the first chapter of Great Thousand Leaf Hands explained how to form the Great Thousand Leaf Hands. This Sky Yao was an amazing genius. He used the process of a plant growing to complete his spell. The first step of Great Thousand Leaf Hands was to gather up the spirit that was scattered. This was not a problem to Zhuo. He easily accomplished it. Next was to forge the gathered consciousness into seeds. This step was crucial. If one could not form seeds, they could not practice Great Thousand Leaf Hands. The steps to forge seeds seemed to be very complicated, but when Zuo finished reading, a strange feeling arose. This was the Dan nurturing water method. The moisture Dan hadn't brought much jingsher to Zuo, but he had studied the water method. The wondrous process of the Dan forming had left a deep impression on him, so when he saw the process of the seed forming, he instantly found similarities. He didn't know if this Sky Yao knew of the water method, but to have created such an amazing set of spells and to use a Dan-making method with spiritual power, he was in awe of the elder. Thinking about it, he twisted his mouth. Pu Yao said he was a Sky Yao, but they were both Sky Yao, so why was the difference so great? Pu Yao had taken out many kinds of spells, but he had never heard the other say that he had created any of them. Even more importantly, Zuo didn't think Pu Yao behaved like a Sky Yao. He was very suspicious that Pu Yao's Sky Yao identity was just him boasting. Knowing the water method, Zuo didn't have much trouble in forging the seed. A few hours later, a seed had been formed. This seed, that Zuo had gathered all his consciousness into, was the size of a soybean, expanding and contracting as though it was breathing. The most difficult part did not stop Zuo. As long as he persisted in practicing this set of spells daily, after 10 days, this seed would germinate. However, since all of his consciousness had been used to create this seed, it was like his consciousness had disappeared. This caused Zuo, who had relied on using his consciousness constantly, to feel extremely awkward. Without his consciousness, Zuo could not make Dan, could not forge, but what made him jump in fright was that he could not use the Skyring Moonchime formation. Damn it! He had made such a fatal mistake. It seemed that he had been too proud these past days. Please, no one come in these next 10 days. To not cause terror in other disciples, he acted normally on the surface. Gongsun Cha delivered a pile of materials to him, all of it taken from the body of the blue-spiked crocodile that Zuo had killed. What was most attention-catching among the items was the hide of the blue-spiked crocodile and the 7 blue spikes. The hide was pristine. It was rare to see such a perfect blue-spiked crocodile skin. The hide of a blue-spiked crocodile was outstanding material to make Ling armor, and the price on the market was very high. What Zuo liked the most was the 7 blue spikes. The 7 blue spikes were rare water element materials, and they came from the same blue-spiked crocodile, which made them very appropriate to forge into a flying sword. Zuo's set of 5 sword essence swords needed 5 flying sword with completely different attributes. It would take luck to gather all 5. He decided to forge the 7 blue spikes into a set of flying swords suitable for him to use now. But when he thought that his consciousness was completely used in creating the seed, Zuo could only grimace. 10 days later, Zuo focused all his attention on growing the seed, using the chant from the Great Thousand Leaf Hands. After 10 days of continuous change, the seed was now the size of a goose egg, its outer shell a glowing porcelain. It was possible to see a curled sprout inside. Suddenly, Zuo detected the consciousness inside the egg moving. The outer layer of the seed broke. The outer layer was composed of consciousness and naturally would not have made a sound, but to Zuo it was like thunder. His body seemed to be struck by lightning as it vibrated. A tender sprout with a single leaf reached out of the broken shell. The leaf of the tender sprout was extremely small. It appeared like the palm of a person with all 5 fingers. Everything in the surroundings flooded in clearly. This feeling of everything being in his grasp instantly made Zuo feel secure. Consciousness. Without him detecting it, Zuo found, to his shock, that his reliance on his consciousness had reached such a shocking step. The consciousness seemed much weaker than before, but as long as he had his consciousness, he could activate the Skyring Moonchime formation, and he could guarantee his safety to some degree. Finally calming down, Zuo started to study his completely transformed consciousness. His spiritual power had all turned into this little tender sprout. The little hand that was as round and tender as an infant's was the only leaf on the sprout, but it was of great joy to Zuo. His mind moved and the leaf rippled, the 5 leaf fingers shaking. Quickly, Zuo discovered the trick to manipulating the leaf fingers. The 5 fingers on the leaf became even more nimble. Zuomo was even able to control the 5 fingers on the leaf hand, to do the finger motions of all kinds of spells. There was no sound when the leaf hand made the motions. The spiritual power and the Ling power was completely different. However, if he used finger motions with the leaf hand, its nimbleness far surpassed Zuomo's own finger movements. He could control the leaf hand to complete many highly difficult and almost impossible finger movements. If he used his own fingers, he definitely could not do them. The 5 fingers on the leaf hands could lengthen and change shape according to his will. Zuomo marveled at it. Zuomo played with the leaf hand until he was exhausted mentally. When he stopped, he noticed something he had missed before. The difficulty of controlling the leaf hand had become much easier than before. He wouldn't dare to even think about doing such delicate changes before. The area covered by his consciousness was much smaller than before. In the beginning, he had thought that his consciousness had weakened, but he understood after studying the leaf hand. At the moment, the root of the leaf hand was still inside the seed. The great majority of his spiritual power was still in the goose egg-sized seed. The amount of consciousness that had transformed into the sprout was only a small minority. If all the consciousness inside the seed turned to leaf hands, his consciousness would return to the same level as before. The broken seed was like soil right now, the leaf hand taking its nutrients from it to grow. In the span of one day, the tender leaf hand sprout grew a little bigger. When all of his consciousness turned to leaf hands, the speed the leaf hand grew would then be affected by the rate his spiritual power grew. Zuomo had a direct measure of the benefits that the great 1,000 leaf hands gave him. Even though the area covered by his consciousness was much smaller than before, but the clarity of the area covered by his consciousness was much higher. This benefit had a direct connection to dam making and forging. Zuomo's control of fire had increased to another level. He had a strong impulse to forge a flying sword now, but he suppressed it. His consciousness had not recovered to its peak. The growth of the leaf hand was not fast, but it was steady. Zuomo wasn't in a hurry. He had many things to do, like practicing the first 3 moves of little 1,000 leaf hands. Zuomo had already learned the first 3 moves. Pu Yao teaching him personally did have some effect. These 3 moves were either exquisite or powerful, so he naturally would not let up, and continuously practice them. He needed to practice them to the point that he could execute them with a thought. However, he was far from that step. What he felt strange was the light at his fingertip when he drew the characters was a faint white light, and not the bloody red of Pu Yao. However, the effect of the completed move did not change. Pu Yao could not find a reason for this, so Zuomo, seeing it was not detrimental to casting the spell, threw it to one side. Zuomo still had not discovered the relation between this little 1,000 leaf hands and the leaf hands. It was night, the moonlight streaming down. A completely golden figure was at the edge of the black lake, his feet bare, and his legs apart. Zuomo was using Vajra Profound Sutra. Small strands of earth energy burrowed into his body through the soles of his feet. The earth energy was thin and felt cold. As it spread through his body, he felt unspeakably pleasurable. As the threads of earth energy entered his body, his muscles became even more strong and hard. Zuomo's body was filled with silence and vitality, just like the great earth. He opened his eyes. Glancing at his palms, a faint mountain peak tattoo could be seen. He shook his head. When Pu Yao sucked away the earth energy from his body, the mountain peak tattoo would once again disappear. Each day he had to go through this. He had naturally found some trends. The mountain peak tattoo on his palms should be the symbol of the mountain physique. The stronger the body, the richer the earth energy in the body, the clearer it would be. Each time after he absorbed earth energy was the time it was most clear. A suction suddenly appeared inside his body. The earth energy that had just spread through his body was like a school of fishes that was attracted by bait, moving through every one of Zuomo's muscles and bones. An expression of pain came into Zuomo's eyes. It didn't need his control. His body instinctively rebelled, resisting the departure of the earth energy. It wanted to keep the earth energy, but the suction was so powerful that the earth energy continuously gathered there. Pu Yao took all the earth energy inside his body. Weakness flooded in, but he could not faint because of the pain. His body felt like it was being pricked by needles all over, each muscle and bone was in pain. Zhuo understood the reason. Absorbing earth energy, and then having Pu Yao drawing it away. In the entire process, Zhuo's body was like a man that had just gotten a treasure after struggle, but suddenly was robbed. It instinctively would defend and try to take it back. But since the enemy was too strong, in the conflict, his body was wounded. He had to go through this process daily. The pain could be imagined. It was torture. The damned gravestone. Each time, Zhuo gritted his teeth as he bore the pain. At the same time, he repeatedly cursed the damned gravestone. In this period of time, he would run to the sea of consciousness when he had the free time. The result was that the gravestone didn't take any action after the words had popped up. Listening to the words, Zhuo, who had been trusting of the gravestone, was furious. He finally understood. He had trusted the wrong person. No, he had trusted the wrong steel. Chapter 181. Familiar guest. Zhuo's former habit had been to listen to the sound tablet every day. After arriving in Desolate Wood Reef, he would open the sound tablet whenever he was idle. This was not limited to just him. All the people on the Desolate Wood Reef were the same. Other than the flying sword messages the elders from the sect sent them, this was the only way they could communicate with the outside world. Even with Zhuo's cultivation, he was unable to send flying sword messages to the sect over such a long distance. Every day, they could hear the bad news. It was like the Yaoma had suddenly become strong and peerless. The Xiuzha were not a match for them and continuously lost. Each time he heard this kind of bad news, Zhuo felt depressed. Theoretically, Xiuzha had been hunting Yao for so many years in Bloody Sky Metropolis Jia, while the Yaoma were like the livestock being raised in the Xiuzha's backyard. But why did the Xiuzha suddenly become so weak? He went to the lava lake. Inside the fire formation, a scorching flame covered the copper hoop and silently burned. After a long period of tempering, the copper hoop had become completely red like a piece of fire jade. Carefully inspecting the fire formation, Zhuo's mood became slightly better. If it was tempered for a bit more time, this copper hoop would completely transform. He anticipated just how powerful this copper hoop would be after it was done tempering. After adding new jingsher to the fire formation, he climbed back out. The sunlight landed on his body and warmed him. It was so comfortable he wanted to groan. Now that everything on the Desolate Wood Reef had settled into a routine, other than having to endure the pain of earth energy every day, he didn't have any other frustrations. The Desolate Wood Reef might be isolated, but compared to the endless conflict inside the sect, it was paradise. Suddenly he raised his head. Several black dots appeared on the horizon, heading at astonishing speed towards the Desolate Wood Reef. Xiuzha. Zhuo's heart shook slightly, but compared to the restlessness of the past, he was much more composed. With the Skyring Moonchime formation, even though his consciousness had not completely turned to leaf hands, but the leaf hands were so powerful that just the leaf hand of half his consciousness was more powerful in controlling the Skyring Moonchime formation than before. As long as the Xiuzha that were coming were not Jindan, he was not afraid. 3 Xiuzha had come. Seeing them speed over, Zhuo's heart was slightly shocked. The 3 were not weak. However, when the 3 people flew close, he found to his surprise that he knew them. The 3 people were the Xiuzha that had found him previously to process the inky black lotus seed. When the 3 came close to the Desolate Wood Reef, they had surprised expressions when they saw Zhuo. The 3 quickly landed. Didn't think we would encounter Brother Zhuo here, it really is fate. The red-robed man laughed forthrightly, his composure was extremely friendly. The other 2 tightly followed the red-robed man. Last time, having ran into trouble with them, Zhuo knew they were not good people. In his heart he was wary. However, with his zombie face, no one could see what he was thinking. With Wukong sword sect behind him as support, and the island having the big formation, he was very confident. Haha, yes. Zhuo bowed with folded hands. If it had been in the past, the 3 would have been furious at this attitude. But Zhuo's present status compared to the past was like the difference between heaven and earth. The status of Wukong sword sect was rising in Sky Moon Jia. No one dared to provoke this battle-crazy sect, and Zuo was also a core disciple of Wukong sword sect. The red-robed man rejoiced that he had made amends last time, so their relationship wasn't too terrible. Otherwise, they would have a hard time today. He did not underestimate Zuo due to his Yuji cultivation. Putting aside Wukong sword sect, Zuo alone was a very dangerous entity. He naturally understood a bit about the Skyring Moonchime formation, after having possessed the Jade Scroll for so long. When he saw Zuo set up the formation in the Great Pine Pavilion, his shock had been indescribable. When he flew near Desolate Wood Reef and saw Zuo, he understood that Zuo definitely had put a formation over the island. However, this person was very experienced. He could bow with the circumstances and was extremely perceptive. He smiled and said, "Us three brothers wish to use your place to rest and recover for a few days. This is just a token of our appreciation. Brother Zuo, don't refuse." The red-robed male handed over a small bag of jingsher. Zuo slightly bounced it, and was very satisfied. 300 pieces of third-grade jingsher. As expected, this shoujo was good with handling relationships. "That's fine. You can pick any residence here. If you need anything, just ask this little brother." Zuo instantly became much warmer. The red-robed male released a breath inside. It was easy now that Zuo was willing to take their jingsher. What he was most worried about was that Zuo held a grudge over the incident of the inky black lotus seed. So before Zuo had said anything, he had proactively and generously made the first move. Looking at it now, he was correct in doing so. "Sorry for the disturbance. Right, I've also put a formation on this island. Please do not move around carelessly," Zuo reminded them. The red-robed man thought as expected. His mouth responded, "Many thanks for the reminder, Brother Zuo." Zuo didn't waste words, he turned and left. When Zuo disappeared, the three finally relaxed. The snarling brawny man snorted coldly. "Look at him act like that. I want to grind him to meat paste. Is this place safe?" The hawk-nosed man looked at his leader. "We'll rest here for a day and leave. Then go to Little Mountain Jia," the red-robed man said decisively. "Aye." The snarling brawny man was still going on. The red-robed man glared at him and interrupted. "Don't waste words. Quickly meditate. We don't have much time." The brawny man docilely sat and meditated. Taking in 300 pieces of third-grade jingsher, Zuo felt very good. Business with no cost and all profit was really pleasurable. He recalled that the three seemed quite rushed, as though they wanted to leave quickly. He had previously received the Jade Scroll for the Skyring Moonchime formation, and had also gotten a gold forging chapter remnant. The gold method was more obscure. Adding on that it was just a remnant scroll, Zuo didn't put any effort in studying it. But one point was very clear. These three were clearly quite wealthy. Zuo thought about making a transaction. He had a pretty good amount of golden crow fire on his hands, and naturally wanted to sell it. However, the Desolate Wood Reef was really too isolated. He would have to fly for a long time to reach the nearest town. He was just a Juji. If the news got out that he possessed golden crow fire, he would be instantly surrounded and attacked if he stepped out of the Desolate Wood Reef. The best and safest way was to attract people to come to him. As long as he was on the Desolate Wood Reef, Zuo was not afraid of any Ningmai. He didn't need to worry no matter how big the attack force was. No power would actively challenge a battle-crazy sect like Wukong Sword Sect. What was most worrisome was the small shoujo groups of 2 or 3 people. They were the primary bandits and robbers. After killing and stealing, they would hide in a place. Once the noise was over, they would come out. If he had to attract people to come such a long way to such an isolated place, he needed to have something to attract them. Golden crow fire would be one of those things. What Zuo needed to do first was pass the news out so other people knew they could buy golden crow fire at Desolate Wood Reef. His first target would be these 3 people. The red-robed male who had been meditating suddenly opened his eyes, a wary expression on his face. The other 2 quickly opened their eyes. Seeing the intruder was Zuo, the wariness in their eyes lessened slightly. Sorry to disturb everyone's rest. Zuo brashly sat down, no hint of apology in his voice. It's nothing, the red-robed male forced a smile. What does Brothers we need to come so late in the night? Zhuo didn't waste words, heading straight for the topic. This little brother has something good. Does everyone have an interest? The red-robed male first stilled, and then gave an interested expression. Oh, something that Brother Zhuo finds good. It must not be ordinary. Zhuo handed over a jade box. Everyone take a look. The red-robed man took the mini box and praised. Such a fine jade box. Oh, such exquisite formations on here. I have great expectations for what is in the box. He opened the jade box. Inside the jade box, a golden flame silently burned as it floated inside the box. Golden crow fire. The red-robed man shouted. The expressions of the two behind him changing as well. The other two stared fixedly at the golden crow fire in the box, the heat and desire not disguised at all. The red-robed male stared dazedly at the golden crow fire inside the jade box. After a beat he sighed. Brother Zhuo is really skilled. I heard before that the golden crow pill was made by Brother Zhuo. I didn't think that Brother Zhuo could also make such a pure golden crow fire seed. Such skill is really terrifying. Seeing the other did not show signs of wanting to attack, Zhuo's heart slightly eased. The aura of murder that faintly exuded from the three people suggested that they were frequently involved in shady transactions. Zhuo had been very worried that their greed would get the best of them. Even though he had been on guard, there was still danger if the three attacked together. He didn't know, but in this moment, countless thoughts had turned inside the red-robed man's mind. Don't underestimate such a little bit of golden crow fire. It had extremely high value. If one had something to exchange it for, the price wouldn't be just a little bit. However, when he saw Zhuo was so serene, he felt that Zhuo had measures in place. The red-robed male repeatedly weighed his options and pushed down his greed. The three knew each other very well. Leader didn't speak, so the other two knew that Leader didn't want to attack, so they had to control the killing intent inside. You are too complimentary. Are you three interested? Zhuo said. The red-robed male said. How about a trade? This one doesn't have much jingsher. Zhuo instantly became alert and said, no problem. What he hoped for the most was to trade for something useful to him. On a place like the desolate wood reef where even the birds didn't shit, there was nowhere to spend jingsher. It was better to trade for something he could use. The red-robed male took out a pile of items for Zhuo to choose from. Trading was a frequent transaction type between Xiuzha. Because there was no third party, what the transaction process tested was the knowledge of both sides and the price they had inside. The red-robed male had taken out a variety of items. There were talismans, materials, and jade scrolls. The other two also took out and displayed what they had. The three of them were very wealthy. Zhuo's eyes instantly reddened, but his heart jumped. This pile of items was of great variety, and definitely not from one individual. He couldn't help but think about those Xiuzha that killed for treasure. The number of Xiuzha whose lives were ended by the hands of these three definitely wouldn't be low. Zhuo refocused and started to pick. Chapter 182, Discovery. Flipping through the talismans and materials in front of him, Zhuo rejoiced at his decision. These three really had a lot of good items. There were multiple 4th-grade materials, 2 or 3 4th-grade talismans. The rest were things they didn't know the use of. Zhuo wanted to take them all, but that was just a fantasy. Golden crow fire was something good, but what he was offered was also good. In the end, Zhuo picked 3 items. The first was a paper seal soldier. Zhuo had a deep impression of the seal soldier from last time, the brute power and astounding presence it had. When he found a seal soldier in the pile, he was very happy. The grade of this seal soldier was higher than the one before. It should be 3rd grade. Zhuo had only used a seal soldier once. He didn't understand very much about it, and could only make a general judgment. On the 3-finger-wide snowy white paper, the cinnabar seals were curving like earthworms, little bits of gold contained within the bright red cinnabar. The seals felt as though they were burned onto the paper. Holding it on his hand, it was very heavy, as though it wasn't made of paper but more like a piece of metal, strong yet flexible. The other was a 4th-grade blue icicle crystal. This blue ice crystal was of outstanding quality, entirely transparent without an impurity. forming a perfect icicle. When he took it out, a mist floated around the blue icicle crystal. Zuo had to channel Ling power to hold this blue icicle crystal. If he did not channel Ling power to his palm, his hand would have been frozen by the crystal. Seeing such an outstanding blue icicle crystal, the first thought in Zuo's mind was his 5 essence set of swords. If he forged this into a flying sword, it would be perfect for Xi and Yan Sherbua's Ice Dragon Sword essence. The last was a talisman. When the 3 saw Zuo pick this talisman, they all had shocked expressions. It was a stick-shaped talisman that was severely damaged. It looked as though it should have 4 panels, but 2 of the panels were broken. None of the 3 recognized this talisman. They didn't even know where they had gotten the stick from. Zuo was willing to use a valuable choice to pick this broken stick. Then it wasn't something ordinary. They were clear about that, but they didn't recognize it, so it wasn't useful in their hands. Also, no matter how good this talisman was, it was damaged. How good could it be? They were willing to trade it. The 2 sides easily made the transaction. Zuo gave the golden crow fire with the mini box to the other. The 3 all had happy expressions. Even though it was 3 for 1, but they felt it was worth it. The golden crow fire was one of the higher quality 4th grade fire seeds. Fire seeds were rare in the first place. This fire might be a tiny flame, and was weak, but it was pure golden crow fire. As soon as it was imprinted, it could form a fire seed inside the body. While the blue icicle crystal was also 4th grade and it was perfect, but it still was not on the same level as this little ball of golden crow fire. But Zuo did not lose out. It was very hard to buy a 3rd grade seal soldier on the market. There were not many seal xiao in Sky Moonjia. Seal soldiers could save lives. A 2nd grade seal soldier could face a Ningmai for a short amount of time. What about a 3rd grade seal soldier? Zuo couldn't help but feel anticipation. No matter if it was the 3rd grade seal soldier, or the perfect blue icicle crystal, they were all extraordinary treasures. But what Zuo put the most importance on was the damaged stick. The 3 opposite him did not know it, but Zuo recognized it. It was not a stick, but a damaged 4-flanged Vajragada. It was a talisman that Diana Xiao used. True Diana were rare in Sky Moonjia. Zuo was very curious where they got a Diana talisman from. Diana emphasized cultivating the body and forming abhina. This was the first time Zuo saw a Diana talisman. However, he didn't pick this 4-flanged Vajragada out of curiosity, but because he had discovered something else. His consciousness had become multiple times more sensitive as the leaf hand formed. When his consciousness had swept across this 4-flanged Vajragada, he had suddenly felt a hidden power come out of the Gada. This power was not strong, it could be considered weak. It didn't give off any pressure, was a peaceful but thick. This weak, harmless power almost caused Zuo to lose his control of his consciousness. How could Zuo not feel shock? His own spirit was much stronger than normal Ningmai. His mentality was as strong as stone, unable to be shaken. Now that he had the leaf hand, in terms of strength, wasn't he multiple times stronger than before? It wasn't normal. In an instant, Zuo understood the value of this 4-flanged Vajragada. He did not hesitate and picked it. Both sides were happy. The next morning, the 3 bid farewell to Zuo very early and flew towards the Jia River. Zuo naturally wouldn't speak of letting them stay longer, but felt it strange. These 3 still clearly seemed quite tired, and had not completely recovered. Why were they in such a hurry to leave? Crossing the Jia River was not an easy matter. Even though he was puzzled, Zuo did not have the time to care. He wanted them to leave as soon as possible, so he could stop worrying and cultivate. The present desolate wood reef was like a paradise. The incident of the blue-spiked crocodile appearing and wounding someone reminded Zuo that he may have set down an unprecedentedly large skyring moonchime formation. But the desolate wood reef wasn't small, and there naturally were many holes. Since he had discovered this, it was easy to deal with. He only needed to add some child formations to the skyring moonchime formation, and it would seal the holes. Luckily, the main skeleton had already been built, so the rest progressed quickly. After being fixed up, the desolate wood reef could be considered impregnable. Zuo had not spared any of the beaches. After the incident with the blue-spiked crocodile, no other Ling beast had managed to get into the island. Gongsun Cha became the most idle person. There were no beasts for him to work on. He was very depressed. Zuomo placed heavy importance on this shitty that had been certified for a jade medal and had comforted him. After making rounds, it was time to absorb earth energy for the day. Just having comforted Gongsun Cha, Zuomo needed to directly face an even harsher reality. Days were passing so slowly. Zuomo howled, feeling as though each day was a year. Come. Pu Yao raised his chin, smiling seductively and smugly. Zuomo asked the question he would ask every day. How many days left? Soon. Pu Yao insincerely comforted him. Zuomo's body was dark gold. His pants rolled up and his bare feet struck deep in the soil. Threads of weak earth energy entered his body and flowed around, continuously permeating his muscles and bones. It was as though he was soaking in the water, unspeakably comfortable. But Zuomo did not dare to relax. His body was as tense as copper wire, nervous to the extreme. Countless previous experiences taught him if he allowed himself to sink into this comfortable state, the torture that would come next would become even harder and more painful to bear. The suddenly discrepancy would destroy a person. Zuomo's spirit had almost been wounded multiple times. After that, he didn't dare to let himself sink deeply into this pleasurable feeling. He was like a criminal that knew that he was going to his execution soon. He had delicious food in front of him, but it could have been cardboard for all he cared. It was coming. Strangely, he felt his heart relax. It finally came. The rest was very simple. One word: suffer. The earth energy that entered Zuomo's body became even tinier. That would cause the pain when they were drawn out to be even stronger. Zuomo's body uncontrollably trembled like dice. But his legs were like nails, hammered deeply into the ground. The hair-thin earth energy was slowly and forcefully sucked out of the depth of his body. They passed through his flesh, the pores in his bones, his channels. Zuomo tried his best to keep his mind clear. This was the only method he had found over time that could decrease the feeling of pain. However, in such a painful state, it was very difficult to enter a clear state of mind. People's potential was limitless. After being continuously tortured, Zuomo started to find some tricks. He tried his best to pull his consciousness away. It was best if it could wander outside his body. That way, no matter how much pain his body was in, he would not be affected. Relax. His body was fiercely trembling, yet his breathing slowly calmed down. Embryonic breathing, spiritual cultivation. Unknowingly, Zuomo entered an embryonic state. Pu Yao exclaimed in shock, his action of drawing out earth energy pausing. In his bloody pupil, a thoughtful expression occurred. He seemed to have thought of something. Maybe. Zuomo, in his embryonic state, was like a spectator. He could see his body continuously tremble in increasing severity. For the first time, he did not feel pain at all. There was no joy. He just peacefully looked. He looked, as his body started to become transparent, looked at the flesh under his skin, and saw those hair-thin earth energies continuously break free of the control of his body, and was forcefully sucked out. The entire process was displayed openly in front of him. His muscles started to grow larger in front of him, so he could look more clearly, look closer. Each fiber of his muscles uncontrollably trembled when the earth energy passed by. He just silently looked. It seemed he could look at more things. He was very peaceful, until he looked and saw a scene. This was. Suddenly he seemed to understand something. As the idea popped out, it was like a pebble had been thrown at a peaceful pond. Everything in the surroundings suddenly became blurred and unreal, as though it was rippling. Hiss. Extreme pain suddenly washed over him like a flood. Zuomo's mind had wavered as he left the embryonic state. Before his mind could steady, it was rushed by this unparalleled pain. He almost fainted. Damn it. Having left behind the embryonic state, Zuomo did not have any of the peace he had before. He gritted his teeth and arched his neck, trying his best to bear the shock of the pain. His mouth occasionally inhaled sharply. His eyes were red, like a bandit that had murdered many. If this was any previous time, Zuomo definitely wouldn't try to resist like this. The pain this time was far greater than any other previous occasion. It would be better to just faint. Then he wouldn't have to experience it. However, he definitely wouldn't give up this time. He decided to resist to the end. He didn't have the time to ponder what he had just seen, but he believed his own judgment. It was so painful it was pleasurable. So painful it reached his bones. He struggled to bear it. He wanted to laugh, roar with laughter. 1. A gada is a mace, a weapon used by one of the gods. In depictions, the gada is literally a stone on a stick. This particular weapon has flanges, so it is a four-flanged mace/gada. Search Vajra weapon, and imagine one end of it set on a stick. Chapter 183, Black Wind Bandits. Zhuomo's hands were on his knees as he allowed his sweat to drip to the ground. His chest was heaving like bellows, his rough rushed breathing short and sharp. He didn't have the energy to talk. He still wanted to smile, wanted to laugh. His brain numbed from pain. He gradually recovered his strength. The joy in his heart diluted the exhaustion of his body. What he had seen when he looked, he almost did not believe it. The earth energy spread throughout his body, and in the end into his blood and flesh. When Pu Yao drew it out, the thin earth energy was like a rainstorm of needles that once again passed through his blood and flesh. In other words, Zhuomo might not have been able to keep the earth energy, but the flesh of his body was bathed twice by the earth energy. The stimulation caused by the earth energy as it was drawn out by Pu Yao was much stronger than when Zhuomo absorbed the earth energy. Even though Zhuomo could not keep the earth energy, his physical body was being continuously tempered like a piece of metal. The attribute of the earth energy, nourishment, could quickly replenish the damage that Zhuomo's body received during this beating. As long as he could keep bearing it. After his body had gone through such a forging process multiple times, wouldn't it be strong? He didn't know if the gravestone had told him to agree with Pu Yao because of this. In any case, he wanted Pu Yao to do it more. In his perspective, this was a method of cultivation, even though it really was a matter of luck. Even if he understood the trick to it, but without Pu Yao, it would be impossible. Zhuomo didn't have any way of drawing out the earth energy in his body. Zhuomo controlled the exhilaration in his heart, and pretended to be exhausted. Like a bag of sand, he smashed onto the ground like wet mud. He definitely could not attract Pu Yao's attention. Zhuomo understood Pu Yao very well. That Ren Yao would be excited upon seeing his sorry state, and would be very willing to do this again. However, if the other saw his joy, Pu Yao would definitely stop. In the endless ocean, a large group of Xiuzhou were flying, all kinds of colors crossing the sky. Those three would definitely run towards Little Mountain Jia. Should we keep pursuing? The one speaking was a tall and thin person. The almond-yellow Taoist robe hung on his body like a rag that could be blown away by the wind at any time. He was called Wei Rong, and ranked third in this crowd of people. Go. Why don't we keep going? The large man at the front stared with his bell-sized eyes. Wei Rong couldn't help but shrink back. The big man at the front was called Zhang Hao. His personality was as explosive as fire, his eyes full of viciousness. Not just Little Mountain Jia. Even if it's the edge of the world, I won't let them escape. The big man's eyes flashed with viciousness. They dare to trick me, I'll skin them. Yes, 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 Wei Rong hurried to agree. Hee, those three really had the best luck, finding a secret realm. Judging from their actions, they seemed to have gained a lot. Another man with one eye and a lame leg laughed darkly. He was called Zhuohan. In this group, he was second in rank. Good luck? It's our good luck. Greed flashed through Zhang Hao's eyes. He shouted, brothers, if we want to be rich, then let's get motivated. A secret realm. After finishing this job, we can retire. What do you say? Kill them. Don't worry, meat that's reached our mouths, can we let them escape? Kill, kill, kill. Riches move people's hearts. To this crowd of bandits that lived through robbery, nothing could move them more than this. This crowd of people exuded killing intent, the exhaustion of their long flight lessening. Zhuohan glanced at the head in admiration. Head might look straightforward, but just a few of his words instantly stirred the desire for battle in everyone's hearts. He was very skilled. A secret realm. Just these two words, if news spread, they could create countless conflicts in Sky Moon Jia. Zhuan couldn't help but admire the luck of the three people who had found a secret realm. They had accidentally stumbled upon the three and found some traces. However, they were just a bit too slow. When they rushed over, everything good inside the secret realm had been completely swept away. In reality, even without those treasures, the value of the secret realm was extraordinary. However, to Zhang Hao and the others, it didn't have any value. They were wandering bandits, moving like the wind. If they put down roots, their enemies would quickly come to kill them. Everyone understood this, so they did not hesitate in pursuing in the direction the three had gone in. This team of wandering bandits was about 70 people. Its size couldn't be considered large, but they had great offensive power. They called themselves Black Wind. So everyone called them the Black Wind Bandits. Each member was at least Zhuji. 5 were in Ningmai. The newest member had been a part of the group for 3 years. They were very good in their cooperation. Adding on that there were not many members, they were very experienced. It was hard to track their movement. Many experts that wanted to kill them were not able to. Head Zhang looked straightforward, but in reality, he was careful and cautious. They had lived very freely. In these 2 years, the situation had become more unstable. Their lives had gotten even better. Those big sects were hurriedly consolidating their own power for their survival, and didn't have the time to bother with them. It wasn't just the Black Wind Bandits. The present Sky Moon Jie was not as peaceful as in the past. Murders and fights were multiple times more frequent than 3 years ago. This messy situation seemed to point to an even more chaotic future. It was very rare to see Xiuzhe that traveled alone. The result was that the market rate to hire a sword xiu had exploded and reached a terrifying level. Correspondingly, the price for all kinds of production xiuzhe had dropped. Many people were facing unemployment. A very strange situation appeared in the markets. The prices of all kinds of materials were sky high, but the formerly busy Ling gardens were now barren. Everyone was concerned. Everyone was waiting for big sects like Wukong Sword Sect to finish their reorganization and steady the situation. The Black Wind Bandits had taken advantage of the chaos and grew larger by taking a few big jobs. Right now, all of them were very wealthy, but greed was not so easy to satisfy. As they changed their talismans, the overall power of the Black Wind Bandits had risen. This allowed them to gain enough power to steal from more powerful xiuzhe, even managing to target some of the minor powers. But even the rich little powers could not compare to a secret realm. They stopped on the little island coming up. One of the subordinates pointed at the little island that could just be seen. He was the one most skilled in tracking of this group. Go see, Head Zhang unhesitatingly ordered. A group of people flew towards the island. Chun Yuqing pointed at the infant worms in the beast pool, full of pride and anticipation as he said, Xixiang, this is the first batch of worms. He didn't like conflict and fighting. His main goal in life was to accomplish something in the field of animal husbandry. He had sunk into the beast pool in the last period of time. All of his attention was on pondering the abilities of the beast pool. Much of the content in the Jade Scroll was not complete, and there were many parts he did not understand. However, he was not discouraged, but full of motivation to keep studying harder. A person that came from grassroots would always be very careful with any opportunity they got. The harder it was to understand, the more excited he was, because this meant that it was more profound. Low-level xiuzhe were willing to trade anything to get a profound skill or spell, including their life, because they had nothing. Chun Yuqing forgot to eat and sleep as he studied. As expected, he did discover some things. This batch was only 6 infant worms, and it was the first successful batch that he had raised up until now. It was no wonder that he was so excited, and couldn't wait to show off his results. What's the mother? Zuomo asked as he looked at the 6 infant worms. The infant worms were about the thickness of his pinky, wrinkled and gray-white. They were not very attractive. Zuomo was slightly disappointed. These infant worms looked too normal, without any hint of quality. However, he also knew that this beast pond was profound and hard to understand. Chun Yuqing Shidi was just a Zhuji, and it would definitely take time before he would produce good results. He could not hurry this. Chun Yuqing did not detect Zuomo's disappointment at all. He said excitedly, I use 3 kinds of ling butterflies for the mother. Dongfu poisonous moth, blue pupil butterfly and rain mark butterfly. Zuomo's face was puzzled. What are these ling butterflies? Chun Yuqing didn't dare to laugh at Zuomo and he hurried to explain. Dongfu poisonous moth is a normal kind of poisonous moth produced in Dongfu. It is 2nd grade, and can release a certain amount of poisonous powder. It is an average ling butterfly. Blue pupil butterfly and rain mark butterfly are 3rd grade ling butterflies. Blue pupil butterflies are born with a pair of blue pupils that can see through illusions of 3rd grade and under. The rain mark butterfly is a water element butterfly, skilled in water element spells. The highest grade rain mark butterfly I've ever seen could use 3 water spells. The one I used is of average quality, and can only cast 1 kind of water element spell. Oh, it sounds very complicated. Zuomo gaped, nodding his head. Yes, this is all too deep and broad. Chun Yuqing sighed. Zuomo hadn't heard of any of the 3 ling butterflies before. The bunch of ling butterflies that Chun Yuqing had introduced to him before, he had completely forgotten all of them. He thought that his decision to throw the beast pool to Chun Yuqing Shidi was really too wise. If it was him, wouldn't he be having a headache? Thinking about it that way, Zuomo's disappointment at the ugliness and average nature of the infant worms instantly disappeared. He smiled at Chun Yuqing saying, "Don't rush. We can go slowly. Maybe we can produce a few fine ones. Then we'll strike it rich." Chun Yuqing knew Xixiang was comforting him. The rate that fine ones appeared was very low. He had studied for so many years, but he had only ever produced 2 ling beasts that could be considered to touch the border of fine. It was these 2 semi-fine ling beasts that allowed him to qualify for the jade medal. "Don't worry, Xixiang." Before Yuqing could not say it, Chun Yuqing said seriously, "But with the beast pool and such a profound method, Yuqing would definitely bring good news to Xixiang." Zuomo saw the mood was too stern, and wanted to say a few words to loosen it up, when he suddenly raised his head to look into the distant sky. A long way off in the sky, a crowd of black dots was flying at high speed towards the desolate wood reef. Zuomo's gaze focused. After his consciousness had turned into leaf hands, it was abnormally sensitive. He could clearly feel the ferocity of the other's approach. The murderous intent was like a dark cloud, a suffocating presence sweeping towards him. Chapter 184. Mantis and Oriole. Without a word, Zuomo brought out the Wukong flag. The black metal mast carried a inky black flag, the words Wukong written with sword-like strokes that almost flew off the cloth. As the Wukong flag was revealed, sword essences rippled as though an invisible hand disturbed a still puddle of water. The air in the surroundings became dense and cold, with turbulence flowing under the surface. Zuomo saw the Xiuzha come in even closer, and his hands started to rapidly cast all kinds of spells. Light suddenly formed on the Wukong flag above his head. Countless sword energies of all colors flew out from the flag, like fish of different colors. They swirled and circled around Zuomo. With the sword energies as protection, Zuomo's confidence increased. Wukong flag was the token of the sect, forged together by multiple Jindan. What was sealed inside were sword energies from all types of Jindan experts. Limited by his cultivation, Zuomo could not use the full power of the Wukong flag, but the sword energies of Jindan experts were still incredibly dangerous to Ningmai. Luckily, there was no Jindan expert in this group. Zuomo stared at the group of Xiuzha that was coming closer. He couldn't help but be slightly nervous. This was the first time he was facing so many people by himself. The other side clearly had ill intentions. However, he might be nervous, but there were not any stray thoughts in his head. His mind was abnormally clear. As soon as the other side made a move, he would not hesitate in unleashing a thundering attack. The Xiuzha in the air stopped their flight, facing off from far away. Zhang Hao's face was hesitant as he stared at the black flag. Zuohan's features were twisted, his one eye showing deep hatred, his hands fisting and cracking. Wei Rong's face was pale, his bamboo-like body shaking. When the other people saw the flag, it was like they had seen a ghost, deep terror on all of their faces and their bodies uncontrollably shrinking back. In one moment, the procession of more than 70 people sank into a strange silence. "Head, this little brother has followed you for 10 years, you know my temper." This little brother doesn't want to drag everyone down. This brother's revenge, this brother will personally take it. Head, don't stop me. Zhuohan's voice seemed to come from the netherworld. Everyone's expression changed upon hearing it. The cowardly Wei Rong was white. Some time before, the reckless Black Wind bandits had coincidentally encountered Wukong Sword Sect, and it had been the group led by Wei Sheng. They were instantly defeated and heavily wounded. Zhuohan's eye and leg had been taken by Wei Sheng. Wei Sheng's void sword scripture was somewhat complete now. His sword essence would permeate the body. Zhuohan had tried all the Lingdan but could not heal it. His hatred of Wukong Sword Sect was deep to the bone. He had constantly thought of ways to seek revenge, but the only realistic way was to encounter Wukong Sword Sect disciples that were alone, and kill them to vent his frustrations. He hadn't thought he would really encounter Wukong Sword Sect disciples. Staring at the big flag, Zhang Zhao did not speak. He could naturally see the extraordinary nature of the flag. This disciple was undoubtedly a core disciple of Wukong Sword Sect. If he really killed this Wukong Sword Sect disciple today, Wukong Sword Sect would not rest. Having almost been killed by Wukong Sword Sect, how could Zhang Hao not be angry? But he recognized the situation. With the strength of the Black Wind bandits, going to seek revenge against Wukong Sword Sect was seeking their own death. In the eyes of Wukong Sword Sect, the Black Wind bandits were nothing. As long as they didn't go to challenge them, Wukong Sword Sect would not remember them. But if he let Zhuohan go off to see revenge alone, what would the other brothers think? Zhuohan was one of the oldest and original members of the Black Wind bandits, and had followed him for 10 years, making numerous and great contributions. If he was so frigid, it would cool the hearts of the other brothers. If the hearts moved apart, then the Black Wind bandits were over. Also a secret realm. The secret realm was like a heavy weight on his heart. The balance in Zhang Hao's heart instantly tilted. This was the Jia River. If they killed this disciple, and traveled far from Sky Moon Jia, no matter how powerful Wukong Sword Sect was, they would not be able to do anything. As long as this band of brothers was together, they could live anywhere. He never even thought that he could be defeated. It had been such a long time, and the only person who came out was a Zhuji. No matter how strong Wukong flag was, if his group couldn't kill one Zhuji, then they could go back to drinking milk. A pity about the flag. He knew the extraordinary nature of the Wukong flag, but he didn't dare to take it. Sect tokens like these would have their own special imprints in them. Holding it was akin to telling other people where they were. Wukong Sword Sect would only need to send one Jindan to kill them all. Zhang Hao inhaled deeply, viciousness flashing through his eyes. He said hatefully, "What are you saying? Our group, after all this time and struggles, we are one fucking family. Wukong Sword Sect might be strong. We can't kill them. But we can't be weak. We were humiliated so badly last time. If we can't even deal with a baby, can it be any more of a fucking embarrassment?" Zhang Hao looked around. Shame was on the faces of many. Yes, Wukong Sword Sect was powerful, but if they had surrounded a disciple, it would be embarrassing if they escaped. Zhang Hao's tone relaxed slightly. "Where is this?" "This is the Jia River." As long as we pass the Jia River, it will be Little Mountain Jia. Wukong Sword Sect is strong. Can they go through Little Mountain Jia without any care? Haha, we can go hide. Can they find us? The other people nodded when they heard this. Zhang Hao continued to pour oil on the fire, full of persuasion. It is a secret realm. Brothers, once we catch those three, we're rich. With Jingshi, where can't we go? We'll be bosses wherever we go. With the work of a few words, the desires of the group had been stirred by Zhang Hao. Viciousness shine in everyone's eyes, killing intent brimming. They wanted to immediately level the desolate wood reef. Feeling the killing intent become increasingly heavy, Zuoyamo knew a big battle could not be avoided. He didn't have any thoughts of avoidance. He didn't know what the group of people was, but seeing they had no fear of the Wukong flag, they were definitely not normal Xiuzha. 1 against 70, he knew how low his chance of victory was. But there was no place to escape on this endless ocean. The shitty that he had taken along were all producers. If he abandoned them, they would only have one outcome. He broke off all his thoughts. Staring at the Xiuzha brimming with killing intent in the sky, his courage rose. Wasn't it just a fight? Go will chip off all of your teeth until the blood flowed. He felt his blood boiling, a desire for battle rising in his chest. Just as he was going to activate the Skyring Moonchime Formation, he suddenly made a sound of surprise. Skyring Moonchime Formation. The disciples of Wukong Sword Sect were gathered together, all of them with bloodless faces. The only one that was somewhat calm was Gongsun Cha. Even Chun Yuzheng's complexion was slightly pale. Where did this crowd come from? They dare to disregard our Wukong Sword Sect. Aren't they afraid the sect will pursue them? Chun Yucheng's voice was trembling. Gongsun Cha snorted. This group is definitely wandering bandits. I just don't know which bunch. Pursue? How do they pursue? If they run to Little Mountain Jia, the sect will have no way. What should we do? What should we do? Chun Yucheng was mindless. Gongsun Cha shuffled and spread his white palms. All up to Zhuo Shixiang. Zhuo Shixiang is only one person. No way about it, submit to your fate. About 10 miles from the desolate wood reed, in the middle of a white cloud, a bunch of people were also staring at the desolate wood reef. Now here's something to see. Who do you think will win? The yellow-faced man said. At his side was a black-clothed Xiuzha. His body was withered like dry firewood, his eyes dark. It was Gui Feng from the Sword Test Conference. On the other side was an indifferent, short wiry-haired Chang Hung with a copper ring at his collarbones. The other people present both feared and were in awe of these three, unconsciously keeping their distance. Gui Feng's eyes were eerily green, his cultivation much deeper than before. His voice was raspy. He isn't in Ningmai. The implication did not have to be said. He still didn't know the origins of the yellow-faced man. He only knew that the yellow-faced man called himself Bo Feng. He cultivated the Little Ghost Sword, which was an extremely obscure sword scripture. Even though he had good talent, but the Little Ghost Sword scripture had been incomplete at the start. It was hard for him to keep progressing further. At the time, Bo Feng had given him a scripture called Nine Ghost Nail Curse. This scripture that he had never heard of before caused him to have no hesitations about joining. But when he saw Chang Hung, he was slightly shocked. He speculated that Chang Zheng should be in a similar situation as him. However, he didn't know what scripture Bo Feng had given Chang Hung. He didn't really care about this group of Zhuji. Actually, he felt there was no use for them. With him and Chang Hung, this group of 36 Zhuji really had no use. The problems the three of them could not solve, what good would adding on these 36 Zhuji be? They still won't be able to solve it, and would even drag down their speed. However, it had been Bo Feng who had gathered these 36 Zhuji. Gui Feng wouldn't make trouble for himself by broaching the topic. What do you think? Bo Feng turned to ask Chang Hung. Chang Hung said calmly, Zuomo wins. You have such confidence in him. Bo Feng smiled with surprise. Bo Feng's appearance was not attractive, he was extremely normal, but his composure and actions had a presence that could shake people's hearts. Hearing this, Gui Feng did not agree. This was not the sword test conference. Zhang Hao and his group of Black Wind bandits were all extremely nasty and terrible people. This was a battle to the death. A Zhuji, managing to block them for a few hours was enough to be proud of, much less victory. But he did not voice it. He was still very wary of Chang Hung. There was no reason to cause conflict for such an unimportant topic. His strength had grown over this period of time. Chang Heng's growth most likely had not grown any less than his. Bo Feng did not linger on the topic. He looked at the two sides facing off in the distance, his voice serene. No matter which side wins, we need to get the detailed information about the secret realm from Zhang Hao. The authority in his voice could not be resisted. Everyone's hearts shook. Chapter 185. The Power of the Golden Crow Fire. The two sides didn't even exchange greetings. Zuomo didn't need to ask to feel the enmity from the other side. The Black Wind bandits did not find it necessary. He was just a Zhuji, so did they need to waste such words? Even though he knew that Zuohan desperately wanted to get revenge, Zhang Hao still decided to send a few people to test out the waters. The abilities of the Wukong flag would be known after an encounter. Zhang Hao had gone through countless battles and knew very well he could not be careless. The enemy was a core disciple of Wukong sword sect. It would be normal for him to have one or two life-saving talismans. These life-saving talismans were usually bestowed by the elders of the sect and were incredibly powerful. If they were not careful, they would stumble where they shouldn't, a common occurrence. Since their own side had the advantage, there was no need to take unnecessary risks. Zhuohan was a very good subordinate. He wouldn't be able to bear it if Zhuohan was tricked. There were 70 people in the Black Wind Bandits. 5 of them had reached Ningmai. These were the backbone of the Black Wind Bandits. Those under Ningmai could easily be replaced, especially in such troubled times. He called 5 Zhuji subordinates forward. Even if the opponent had life-saving treasures, his cultivation was still limited. The other would be at a disadvantage with 1 against 5. Battle quickly, he said, and then turned to comfort Zhuohan. Old brother, don't be impatient. After they catch him, if you want to skin him or suck out the marrow, you can do whatever you want. Zhuohan said gratefully, Many thanks, head. Zhang Hao roared with laughter. Don't be so courteous. Old brother has made many contributions over these years. This is just a minor matter. The 5 people did not dare to be rash. Light was flashing on the flag above the other's head, and suggested it wasn't anything ordinary. If it was one-on-one, they knew that they were not a match for disciples of a large sect. But if it was 5-on-1, so they had enough confidence to be able to survive in the Black Wind Bandits, especially as a Zhuji, they had to learn how to cooperate with their fellow bandits. This was the reason that the Black Wind Bandits had been able to remain free all these years. They cooperated very well among themselves. This showed up very clearly when several groups were fighting. Their best method of fighting was to use many to fight against the strong, and use many to fight against many. The disciples of large sects focused on individual power. That meant that they didn't have any advantages when they were fighting in groups. The 5 Xiuzhi came slowly, spreading out in specific positions that complemented each other. Zhuoemo stared at the 5 people. He was not nervous. The sword energies around his body were flying in patterns. Of the 5 Xiuzhi, 3 were sword xiu, 1 person had a black banner, and 1 had a chain sickle. The cultivation of the 5 were not much different compared to Zhuoemo, roughly in the higher stages of Zhuji. The person holding the black banner waved it, and an inky black cloud headed towards Zhuoemo. The 3 sword xiu also attacked. 3 flying swords of different colors turned to 3 dashes of light, transforming in the air as they headed towards Zhuoemo. A cold smile floated on the mouth of the Xiuzhi holding the chain sickle. The black sickle swung in his hands and rattled rhythmically. The chain was the thickness of a thumb, with a water drop-shaped spike at the end of the chain. Traces of blood could be seen on the black chain. It could be seen this weapon had drank a lot of blood, and was a violent weapon. Zhuoemo naturally would not slack off. The Wukong flag above his head landed on his hand, and he waved it. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Countless sword energies flew out of the body of the flag, and headed towards the black cloud. The sword energies easily passed through the black cloud. The black cloud rumbled and returned to normal in the blink of an eye. Zhuoemo tightly stared at the black hood. Of the 5 people, the black cloud and the person holding the chain sickle felt most dangerous to him. The threat posed by the 3 sword xiu was actually the smallest. None of the sword xiu had comprehended sword essence. In Zhuoemo's eyes, their sword energies were insubstantial. The feeling this black cloud gave Zhuoemo was somewhat similar to the blood fiends in the sword cave, dark and gloomy. His mind was clear. The 3 flying swords were aiming at his chest. Zhuoemo turned and dodged the 3 flying swords. He still stared at the black cloud, his mind thinking furiously about how to deal with it. The person wielding the banner was hiding behind everyone else. It wasn't realistic to attack the other. The Xiuzhi holding the chain sickle did not move. He was like an experienced hunter, patiently waiting for Zhuoemo to reveal a weakness. The black cloud was not fast, but its scope was very vast and would not be easy to dodge. The sword energies that passed through it had not stopped it at all. A difficult thing. Zhuoemo's head swelled. Far away, the attitudes of those spectating such as Bofeng were idle, but when Bofeng saw the black banner, he had a startled expression. Black blood banner? People still make those? He looked closely and then realized, so it is incomplete. No wonder. What is the Black Blood Banner? Gui Feng suddenly asked. In the 9 Ghost Nail Curse that Bo Feng had given him, it had mentioned the Black Blood Banner, but it was a general description. An obscure talisman, made by collecting yin and dirty substances. It can corrode talismans and flying swords very effectively. Bo Feng did not conceal anything, explaining honestly. Most of the Xiuzhi that use this kind of talisman cultivate ghosts and yin spirits, but it is not easy to forge one. What that banner used is black dog blood. The grade is too low, the forging method is incomplete, so the power is limited. Gui Feng listened carefully. He might cultivate a sword scripture, but it was also related to the area of ghosts and yin spirits. Most of the Xiuzhi that practiced these arts were roaming xiu. But among the sword xiu it was not considered an honorable practice. He normally did not have anyone who could teach him. Bo Feng glanced at him and said carefreely, however, if one doesn't know how to deal with it, this is difficult to deal with. The other members of the Black Wind Bandits were at ease. In their minds, this battle was already decided. Zhang Hao smiled at Zhuohan. That guy's Darking Banner is really good. It is always effective when used. Pity that it is hard to forge. If we can get a few more, our strength will increase by much. Zhuohan's mood had relaxed. His face also easing off. Hearing this, he smiled and said, Head is too greedy. It is lucky that our troop had even one. Other than our troop, I've never heard of another in our profession that had one, and Head wants us to have multiple. Haha. Zhang Hao laughed. That's true. I'm too greedy. He was very proud inside. The Black Wind Bandits did not have many members, but it did not lack for talent. They were some of the best of their profession in Sky Moon Jia. Just as Zhuo was frantically moving, he suddenly heard Pu Yao snort coldly. They take something as trashy as this out. So embarrassing. He then said disdainfully to Zhuo, You can't even defeat trash like this. You truly embarrass me. Zhuo instantly didn't feel good. Looking at the situation, he swore, Stop wasting words and tell me how to deal with it. The methods of the Diana Xiu are very effective. Diana Xiu? Seeing the black cloud fly closer, Zhuo was speechless. There was no time to deal with Pu Yao's riddles. Oh, I forgot you don't understand. You only have a half-assed Vajra profound scripture. It's useless, Pu Yao drawled. It was deliberate. This guy definitely was doing it deliberately. Zhuo's teeth itched in anger. Oh, I remember, this thing is afraid of fire. Zhuo's mind jumped. Afraid of fire, that was too easy. What he didn't lack right now was fire. A flip of the hand, and a mini box appeared in his hand. Zhuo's action attracted everyone's eyes. What was that? Amidst everyone's curiosity, Zhuo threw the jade box at the black cloud. The Xiuzhi holding the black banner snorted coldly, Ling power flooding into the banner. The black cloud became even thicker and darker, like sticky black ink. A nauseating smell instantly spread. His dark yin banner had been forged using a secret method that he had found in the remnants of a scroll. It was always successful at corrupting talismans. Seeing the other throw out a jade box, he smirked inside. What the Wukong flag had sent out were all sword energies. His cloud was intangible, so they had not been affected it. I'm not afraid you will use talismans, but I'm afraid that you won't use talismans. His eyes twinkled as his prey fell into his trap. The little jade box flipped through the air, attracting everyone's eyes. Zhuo had used a large amount of force. In the blink of an eye, the jade box flew into the black cloud. The Xiuzhi with the chain sickle shook his head, slightly regretful that he wouldn't get the chance to attack. He knew his fellow's black banner very well. No matter what kind of talisman, if it was touched by the black cloud, they would become scrap. Many Ningmai had been tripped up by this nondescript black cloud. As the jade box entered the black cloud, it was quickly corroded. The surface of the box was raven black, and a white rotten pattern appeared. The Xiuzhi holding the banner gave a smug smile. Suddenly, a sword energy entered the black cloud and accurately struck the jade box. This was. The smile of the banner holding Xiuzhi suddenly froze. Pia. The corroded jade box was incredibly fragile, and turned to dust when struck by the sword energy. A pure golden flame fought its way out of the jade box. Golden crow fire. Hiss crack crack. The black cloud was like a ball of oil that was suddenly lit up in a blaze. The little wisp of golden crow fire grew dramatically. The fire spread with astounding speed from the center of the cloud outwards. Terror formed in the eyes of the banner-wielding Xiuzha. Watching from far away, Bofeng's eyes lit up and he couldn't help but gasp. Golden crow fire! It's actually golden crow fire. Golden crow fire. Chang Heng and Gui Feng's heart shook. They stared at the black cloud, not daring to move their eyes away. Their subordinates were all puzzled. What's happening? Zhang Hao stilled. He could make out golden light through the black cloud. Was it that the talisman the little baby had thrown out not affected? Zuohan also couldn't help but stare at the black cloud. The two looked at each other, and found their heated gaze. A talisman that was not affected by the black cloud was very rare. That was definitely a very good talisman. The golden light inside the black cloud became increasingly brighter. All of the Xiuzha noticed the abnormality of the black cloud. However, their thoughts were the same as Zhang Hao and Zuohan. No one noticed the deep hopelessness on the face of the banner-holding Xiuzha. A wisp of golden fire finally burned through the black cloud. In the blink of an eye, the thick tangible surface of the black cloud was covered in burning flames. In the sky, an enormous golden ball of fire hung like the sun. The golden fire was entirely pure, a domineering presence spreading out and sweeping like the wind. Ah! The heart-wrenching wail caused everyone's hearts go jump. The banner-holding Xiuzha had become a person made from golden fire. He only had the time to wail before both he and the black banner turned to dust. Everyone was shocked. Chapter 186. Sword Formation. Golden Crow Fire, 4th grade, formed by gathering the essence of the sun, had extremely young and strong attributes, and was one of the sources of all fires in the world. Golden crow fire was usually created through being nurtured by some special kinds of ling grasses, such as the sky sunflower. Golden crow fire could occasionally be found at the very center of the flower. Supposedly, some sects had secret methods that could create golden crow fire, but due to the fire being overly young and domineering, it was extremely damaging to the body. It could leave hidden weaknesses, and so secret methods were needed. It was one of the fire seeds people dreamed about. It could even absorb and merge with many other kinds of fire seeds, increasing the grade of the fire. On the market, golden crow fire was a treasure that had high demand and no supply. Even the smallest wisp would be worth 1,000 jingshi. People usually remembered how beneficial it was as a fire seed, but usually forgot about the heat and domineering of the fire itself. It was 4th grade. Zuoemo was also stunned by the broad expanse burning in front of him. He had assumed that it could damage this black cloud. He had never thought that the power of the golden crow fire was so terrifying. What he didn't know was the golden crow fire was an extremely strong yang attribute, and was the exact counter to something yin and corrupting as the black cloud. This was why the result was so exaggerated. The black cloud twisted in the air like a little mountain, pressing down on everyone. But when it turned to a ball of fire, such an enormous ball of fire, it was even more of a blow than the black cloud. It came without any warning, or rather, they hadn't made any preparations. Everyone was frightened. Zuoemo was only stunned for a moment before he woke. Such a good chance, if he wasted it, he would be punished by heaven. After being hammered in the big sword essence formation, his grasp of battle rhythm had increased. He channeled Ling power silently. The sword energies were like swimming fish that soundlessly flew out of the Wukong flag, and soundlessly neared the remaining 4 people. There was a variety of sword energies sealed inside the Wukong flag of all attributes. It could be seen just how vast of an area each elder had grasped. The flag also sealed 3 great moves that could be constructed from these sword energies. This was the most important thing about the flag. The original intentions of Pei Yuanran and the others in forging the flag had been these moves, that only Jindan experts could use. This way, Ningmai disciples could release Jindan level attacks and save their own lives at a crucial time. Pei Yuanran originally had not intended to give Zuoemo the Wukong flag, because he had been considering that Zuoemo basically could not use the full power of the flag. Later on, he couldn't withstand the fire of Shifeng fury, so he had to part with it. Zuemo couldn't use any of the great killing moves sealed inside the Wukong flag. He didn't have enough Ling power. He could only release those sword energies and not activate the killing moves. But so what if he couldn't? It might have been the pressure from the life or death situation. But Zuemo's consciousness was abnormally clear. The shock caused by the golden crow fire disappeared in an instant. The little leaf formed from the great thousand-leaf hands, imperceptibly waved. The sword energies flowed silently like water. He found that he had dismissed this Wukong flag before. There were sword energies of all different kinds. Even though they could not form killing moves, but he could easily control these sword energies. Wasn't this the best tool for setting a formation? Instantly comprehending his resources, his mind was clear and still. The situation had turned. The position of hunter and prey silently changed. The golden ball of fire burned. A peerless domineering presence spread in ripples. It attracted everyone's gaze. The 4 people closest to it were not an exception. Under such a bright light, everything had lost color. The 4 people did not know that sword energies had silently surrounded them. The sword energies slid like they were on ice, without a sound, and changed positions. At the beginning, the changes in position between the sword energies was slightly raw, but quickly, the changes in position became very precise. All of this happened in an extremely short period of time. The 4 people had still not recovered from the ferocity of the golden crow fire. The only person who detected something was the Xiuzha who had the chain sickle. Some clarity came into his eyes. He glanced at Zuemo holding the flag, his heart relaxing slightly. When he looked in the surroundings, his expression suddenly changed. He called an alarm, careful. The sword formation had formed. His shout became the prelude to the closing of the net. The sharp and intimidating sword essences sliced at every bit of space. The air within their vision was shattered in an instant. Pew pew pew. 3 pillars of blood shot high into the sky. Before they landed, their bodies were ground to powder by the sword energies that wove and sliced. Bam bam bam. The 3 sword shio seemed to explode in midair. Countless bits of blood and gore flew outwards in all directions. The first person to detect the attack was the Xiuzha who held the chain sickle. He was very experienced and had gone through hundreds of battles. He didn't retreat, but charged. A black light flew from his hand. The sickle headed straight for Zuemo. The water drop spike arched like a poisonous snake, dancing so his sides were covered. As the sword energies hit it, sparks flew. Ding 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 ding. The sword energies continuously hit the lengthening chain, like it was a chain made of sparks. The tip of the sickle gave a howl that shocked people's souls. The chain sickle was made out of an unknown material that was able to cut out a path through such a dense rain of sword energies. The speed was very fast. The edge pointed straight at Zuemo. Impact. The hook had hit the other person. He was jubilant at this surprising outcome. His original intentions had been to defend for a while so his fellows would save him. He hadn't thought he would make impact with one attack. Was the other too busy controlling the sword energies, and could not split his attention? That wasn't right. The sword energies that suddenly lit up alarmed the Black Wind bandits who were still in shock. Right after, they saw something they would never be able to forget. Countless sword energies formed a grand net. The 3 fellow bandits had been ground down and exploded in an instant. The only surviving fellow, they were all very familiar with. The chain sickle on his hand had taken countless lives. However, the black blade was now strangely striking at an empty space, several dozen zhang away from the enemy. The jubilation on their comrade's face made their hair stand on end. Illusion. Zhang Hao's pupils shrunk. He controlled his impulse to charge over. His eyes were very experienced. He clearly saw the other had used the sword energies to form a formation. Now that the formation had been activated, charging in was too dangerous. His gaze suddenly darkened. He knew that his remaining subordinate would not escape death. As expected, a gigantic sword made from sword energies heavily struck at the chains that covered the other. The chain that was not easily damaged by flying sword shattered. The Xiuzha that did not have the time to dodge was instantly bisected. All 5 had been lost. Bam! The golden ball of fire coincidentally collapsed at this time, sparks flying in all directions. As the bright golden sparks rained down, a thin and weak youth holding a black flag several times his size was standing proudly under the five-colored sword energies. No one spoke, no one dared to move. The pupils of all the Black Wind bandits couldn't help but shrink. All the underestimation, all the disdain, all their certainty, it all seemed so foolish now. On the sky above the desolate wood reef, there was only the sound of the wind. Wei Rong, who was shaking like dice, suddenly shrieked. I remember now, he's Zuo. He is Zuo. The shriek was ear-piercing in this deathly silence. Far away, Bo Feng's gaze recovered its clarity. Even he had been dazzled by that grand kill. Other than cultivation, Zuo has improved very much compared to last time, he praised. His formations are even harder to predict now. If his cultivation could increase at this rate, he wouldn't be any less outstanding than Wei Sheng. Gui Feng's mouth was open wide, but he could not make a sound, shock dominating his eyes. The strength that Zuo had just displayed was not just a little bit higher than at the sword test conference. Even though that Wukong flag was very strong, but Zuo's skill was worthy of praise. His control of the sword energies, his skill at setting up formations. It was completely different than before. What surprised Gui Feng the most was Zuo's practiced composure and calmness. He remembered how tender Zuo had been at the sword test conference. In the short span of half a year, the Zuo in front of him had become a completely different person. Cheng Heng did not speak, but his eyes seemed to light up, full of desire for battle. Zuo, so you are Zuo. Zhang Hao's expression was very ugly, his voice pressuring. He had thought it would be a soft fruit, but it turned out to be a hard nail. He had heard the name of Zuo before. After the sword test conference, this name had spread through all of Sky Moon Jia. He knew the little brat that looked slightly weak was a core disciple of Wukong's sword sect, but he had not expected it to be Zuo. He remembered now. In the rumors, Zuo was most skilled in formations. He couldn't help but glance at the desolate wood reef under them. There was no movement there, but since the person here was Zuo, there definitely would be countless formations down there. Bandit groups like the Black Wind bandits disliked situations like this the most. What they were skilled at was ambushes and robbery. What they were least skilled at was attacking heavily guarded places with full frontal assaults. In Zhang Hao's eyes, the little island below was like a hedgehog. If it was any other time, he definitely wouldn't attack such a place. But right now, he tasted what it felt like to be unable to get off his high horse. Other than Zuohan's vengeance, 5 subordinates had been killed in front of him. If they left like this, their overall motivation would be greatly impacted. Also, he hurt. The 5 subordinates had all been Juji, but the one with the banner and the other with the chain sickle had been Xiuzha with special spells. Other than the 5 most important backbones, it was very difficult to find replacements for these Xiuzha who had special spells. He didn't hurt for the death of the 3-sword Xiu, but his heart was in pain at the death of those 2. He stared at Zuo, his eyes red. His temper was vicious and explosive. Now that he had tripped up so heavily, would he rest? Even more, since he knew the person in front of him was Zuo. He was clear of the importance of this little island to Wukong's sword sect. Such an important place, they would definitely have stored plentiful resources. He quickly decided. No matter what, they had to take down this little island. Chapter 187. 2 hours the wind howled. The mood above desolate wood reef became even tenser. The Black Wind bandits' killing intent spread. Zuo sighed to himself. Killing the 5 people just now had not created fear. It had provoked their viciousness. Very quickly, he threw these thoughts to the back of his head because the other side had begun advancing forward. Without a doubt, the next fight would be more fierce and cruel. Zuo felt the pressure suddenly increasing. He didn't have the luxury to hold back. Raising his hand, he cast a light downwards. Skiring moonchime formation. A crescent moon rose low into the sky. Countless thin strands fell from the bright moon, covering the entire desolate wood reef. On these thin strands, light rings of various sizes hung like wind chimes. But this crescent moon was dyed with an orange-red tinge. The moon gave off a warm orange glow, when previously it was as clear and smooth as flowing water. Zhuo sighed. Just a little bit more and the Buddha sound hoop would have finished. The tempered Buddha sound hoop would definitely have increased its power. It was a pity that it had just missed by a little bit, but just this little bit caused the power of the Buddha sound hoop to be one level lower. The situation in front of him did not allow him to continue to temper it. There were still more than 60 people on the other side. More than 60 Xiuzha, and 5 of them Ningmai. The pressure they gave him was unparalleled. The only thing that could compete with the present situation was the Great Sword Essence formation. The big formation that was created by 5 Jindan together. Naturally it would not be ordinary. However, when he was inside the Sword Essence formation, he knew he didn't have to worry about his life. In terms of presence, this group was not as intimidating as the Sword Essence formation. But this group of people wouldn't blink as they killed him. They really would take his little life. What should I do? Zhuo asked Pu Yao. Kill. Pu Yao was simple and crisp, his bloody pupil shining. It was now that Zhuo felt this guy had some of the mannerisms of a Sky Yao. However, while the aura was present, but it wasn't useful at all. How do I kill? Zhuo felt he was an idiot to ask Pu Yao, who was also an idiot, but he couldn't resist asking. Was it out of nervousness? As expected, Pu Yao looked at him like he was looking at an idiot. One by one, of course. He now really wanted to ask Pu Yao, how do I kill them one by one? But he suppressed it. He really did not like Pu Yao's gaze. Pu Yao thought and then suddenly said, if you can kill them all within 2 hours, I will teach you another move of little thousand-leaf hands. 2 hours, kill them all. This time, it was Zhuo's turn to look at Pu Yao like he was looking at an idiot. Do you think I'm an idiot? 2 hours, you think I'm killing pigs? They are. Just say if you will do it or not. Pu Yao lazily said. None of the killing intent he had just shown was on his face. Do it. Once he said it, Zhuo felt he was really an idiot. 2 hours, to kill that dense patch of people. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 67 people. 5 Ningmai, 62 Zhuji. He was Zhuji. Okay, after Pu Yao did this, the last bit of nervousness in Zhuo's heart had dissipated. Strangely, he felt anticipation and excitement. It was as though he really yearned for the battle that was going to come. His body heated up and his Ling power was abnormally lively. Was it that he had stayed too long with a pervert like Pu Yao, and became slightly perverse himself? The Skyring Moonchime formation covered the entire desolate wood reef. Zhuo's figure was inside it, flickering in and out of sight. Zhuo's eyes were cold and filled with hatred and killing intent. However, he forcefully suppressed it. He was waiting for Head's order. The reason that the Black Wind Bandits had remained free for such a long time was their outstanding battle strategy, and it was their best protection. Even though he was second in command, and even though the hatred was deep in his heart, he still suppressed it. Zhang Hao's pupils shrunk into a line, a bloody light flashing from his eyes, cruel and vicious. At this time, he had thrown all other thoughts to the back of his head. No matter how many concerns he had, once he decided to fight, there was only one thought in his mind: kill them. Kill. A bellow like the howl of a wild beast came from his throat. Kill, kill, kill. The eyes of everyone else were completely red, leaving behind only pure killing intent. The 67 people split into several parts, and like thin flows, they headed towards desolate wood reef from different directions. Just 67 people, but the vicious and brutal aura they exuded would alarm anyone. Bo Feng, who saw this scene, suddenly lit up, and praised. I had originally thought that the Black Wind Bandits had an inflated reputation before. Looking at it now, they are even better than the rumors. To create this kind of presence, even Wukong Sword Sect, which has been so powerful recently, cannot do it. One Xiuzha couldn't help say, when the Black Wind Bandits met Wukong Sword Sect last time, they suffered a huge loss. The subordinate had followed Bo Feng for a time, and knew that Bo Feng would not be discontent due to differences in opinions, which was why he dared to speak. Bo Feng smiled and shook his head. It's not the same. Wukong Sword Sect's strength is in their individual experts. What the Black Wind Bandits are strong in is their combined ability. The power of the group cannot replace experts, and the experts cannot replace the group. In small conflicts, the effect of experts is very evident, but if it is battles of thousands of people, then the use of experts begins to lessen. How can there be battles with thousands of people? That Xiuzha objected. There aren't any now, but that doesn't mean there won't be in the future, Bofeng said meaningfully. The 67 Xiuzha attacked at the same time. Their presence was astounding. Light flashed across the sky, flying swords and talismans were dancing. Zhang Hao's plan was very simple, to use brute force to break technique. It was unwise to go head-on against a fortified target, but the present situation was special as the only person on the other side that could resist was Zuaremo. No matter how strong Zuaremo was, when he faced the attacks of 67 Xiuzha, there would have to be times where he would slip. Formations were set up on the island. If they landed in them, that would give Zuaremo a chance. It was better to use brute force to break the formation from the base. Having lost his greatest defense, Zuaremo would be like a lamb waiting for slaughter. Zuaremo felt terrible right now. Damn it. This group of people rained everything down on his head. 67 Xiuzha furiously attacking downwards at the same time, without regard for Ling power. They looked as though they would only rest when Desolate Wood Reef was leveled. This group was also very smart. They only bombarded Desolate Wood Reef from a distance, and did not come any closer. Seeing all the flying swords and spells come down on his head like rain, Zuaremo became stubborn. Alright, Ji will see just how much Ling power you have to waste. The Wukong flag was heavily inserted into the ground. The sword energies that swarmed around his body silently entered the Skyring Moonchime formation. Zuaremo jumped up from the ground, and started to pass around the Desolate Wood Reef. He was like a fireman, continuously watching over the big formation. The Skyring Moonchime formation he had set up was unprecedentedly large, reaching 216 child formations. Adding on that he had continuously been fixing the holes recently, even though it was not impenetrable, but it still managed to survive the bombing of the Black Wind bandits. He knew as long as he could make it through this round, the initiative would instantly change sides. 67 Xiuzha, not all of them could be offensive Xiuzha. For example, Zuahan had 100 poison fan that could release all kinds of dark poisonous miasma, but in a fight of strength, it couldn't have much of an effect. The greatest threat came from strength-based Xiuzha, like Zhang Hao. Zhang Hao's flying sword was very unique. The body of the sword was extremely wide, like it was a shovel or an axe. What he walked was a road of strength. The body of the sword was covered in a layer of red light. Each attack was like a heavy axe breaking a mountain, weighing 30,000 caddies. Zuaremo felt that Zhang Hao was the greatest threat out of all the people. Each of his attacks would make Zuamo's heart jump. The hair-like threads of the Skyring Moonchime formation would be blown into a mess, causing the rings of light on the threads to chime. After being tempered for such a long time, the Buddha sound hoop had an additional attribute of yang and dominance. Before, the chimes had been clear and ethereal. The present chimes were deep and explosive. Even the echoes seemed to carry heat and flame. Zuaremo was still relatively calm. After being alarmed the first few times, he found that the Skyring Moonchime formation was still untouched. He finally remembered that during the sword test conference, the 72-child formation Skyring Moonchime formation had endured a great ordeal. At that time, the number of Ningmai that had been in the formation had been more than right now. If the others wanted to ruin the 216-child formation Skyring Moonchime formation through brute force, that was a big delusion. He knew the other side would quickly realize this. At that time, the fight would truly start. Zuaremo raised his head to look at the sky. Throughout the threads, he could clearly see the mania and hatred on the faces of his enemies. He lowered his head, his eyes becoming slightly cold. He started to take out formation discs from the ring, and threw them inside to form various formations. Using the Skyring Moonchime formation as a cover, he secretly threw out many formation discs. At this time, he didn't have any thoughts of keeping anything back. The formation discs in his ring flew out of his hands like they didn't cost money. He wanted to turn the Desolate Wood Reef into a hunting ground. A hunting ground full of traps. Gong Sun Cha and the others had gone to hide in the cave with the lava lake. This was the safest place on the desolate wood reef. The lava cave was deep under the ground. Zhuo had set up countless formations around it, and it was the most important of all important grounds. So when they heard sound filtering from the outside, all of the people inside the cave had worried expressions. Chun Yucheng sighed. What a pity that we cannot help. These made many people unconsciously clench their hands. They were all production xiao. However, they were young and it was the age to be rash and brave. They also knew what their fate would be if this group broke through the big formation. What wandering bandits needed were people that could fight. Production xiaojia, who had no offensive strength, would be killed at the earliest convenience. Gongsun Cha was the most composed of all the people. He laid on the ground and said unconcernedly, "Don't worry. It won't be so easy for them to break through Zhuoxixiang's big formation. I also feel that Zhuoxixiang is much stronger than before." Has everyone forgotten the blue-spiked crocodile? Once the words came out, everyone was uplifted. They thought about the multiple brute force impacts between Zhuoxixiang and the blue-spiked crocodile. Confidence grew. Their unsecure hearts settled down. In the sky, the attacks slowed down. Zhuo raised his face to look, and then bent down to keep setting up. An absurd idea suddenly came into his mind. 2 hours, there wasn't much time left. Chapter 188. Entering the formation. The Black Wind Bandits lack strong offensive xiaojia. It isn't quite possible to break through Zhuo's formation defense style, Bo Feng said while shaking his head. In Zhuo's hands, this kind of turtle battle strategy is really used to the extreme. Unless they have troops specializing in offense, it's impossible to break through the turtle shell. With such a gigantic formation, Ningmai would find it difficult to destroy in a full frontal attack. Gui Feng lowered his head. He thought about Zhuo's formation defense style at the sword test conference that had caused a headache for everyone. He didn't have many good ideas about how to resolve the formation defense style either. Unless they could attack before Zhuo had set up the formation. Once Zhuo had completed the formation, the chance of victory was almost zero. The formation defense style was also called the turtle style. It was called the strongest defense below Jindan. It wasn't that other people hadn't thought of mimicking Zhuo's formation defense style. But when they tried it themselves, they discovered the formation defense style was not so easy to make. How to quickly set it up was one of the most important problems. Looking at the present situation, Zhuo's formation defense style had reached another stage. His efficiency at setting up and his skill had risen dramatically when compared to the sword test conference. Other than that, the combination of formations needed to be decided in an extremely short period of time. To control the formations, it also demanded a strong and large consciousness. After studying it in depth, everyone found that the formation defense style was not as simple as imagined. Even the process of Zhuo battling Chao and was repeatedly taken out and studied. This was one of the rare battles in recent years where the weak won over the strong. The rich battle strategies involved in the match was enough for every xiaojia who studied it to marvel. Is there really no way? Another xiaojia asked. Bo Feng said deeply. If you encounter Zhuo, do not give him the chance to set up formations. But he has already set up formations. The xiaojia looked at the desolate wood reef. Then I don't have any way. Bo Feng spread his hands and said honestly another xiaojia couldn't help but say. There's so many people. If they just charge in they could win. In their eyes, the difference in strength between the two sides was too extreme. 1 versus 67, and there were 5 Ningmai. Zhuo himself was just in the stage of Zhuji. Even if he had the help of the formation, if this many people charged in at the same time, Zhuo basically would have no chance. If it is anyone else, I would also feel the same, Bo Feng said patiently. To the Zhuji under his command he never skimped on guidance. But if it is Zhuo, I don't think so. What formation defense style? That's just the surface. What Zhuo is greatest at is strategy. He is most skilled at using all the factors at his disposal, and then turning them into advantages for himself. Even if he didn't have these factors, he could also create an environment advantageous to himself. He is a born strategist. On this point, Wei Sheng is not as great as him. His subordinates all had expressions of understanding. Bo Feng added, "Of course, maybe to Zuomo this is a method born out of helplessness. He needs to use other methods to compensate for his flaw of cultivation." If Zuomo heard Bo Feng's analysis, he would definitely agree. If one had Ling power, who would do all this? Just slice with the sword. He admired Wei Sheng Shixiang very much on this point. Bo Feng then gave his conclusion. From when they started to attack the Desolate Wood Reef, they became the reactive side. Desolate Wood Reef is very important to Wukong Sword Sect. But why did Wukong Sword Sect only send Zuomo alone? Because they are very clear that Zuomo, who is able to create the formation defense style, would be able to create a safe place by himself if he is given enough time. The Black Wind Bandits bully the island because there is only Zuomo. What they fail to realize is that Zuomo's offensive abilities might not be strong, but if he is used to guard one island, he is more than enough. Zuomo's growth has exceeded my predictions. Zuomo would only ever fight in an environment that is advantageous for him. The Black Wind Bandits are not weak. To use force to overcome technique, they may have a chance at victory. This will be something to see. His speech made the 30-something Juji under him enchanted. Everyone was in Juji, but the difference was just too great. Then if a Jindan expert came? Some people were still not convinced. Clearly, he was very discontent about a Juji being so arrogant. If a Jindan expert came, no one can stop them. Only Jindan can stop Jindan. This Juji could not say a thing. Zhang Hao also realized that they could not break this turtle shell. Even if they kept on bombarding the island, the Black Wind Bandits were still wandering bandits in the end. They moved like the wind and lacked strong offensive moves. Zhang Hao's greatest wish right now was that everyone would have a talisman like the sky-flipping seal, picking it up and throwing it down heavily. However, wandering bandits that traveled quickly like the Black Wind Bandits usually scorned talismans like the sky-flipping seal. They were too difficult to transport. The threads coming from the orange moon shook. The rings of light chimed endlessly, but they did not break. Zhang Hao was clear about the power of his flying sword. Even among the Ningmai, those that could receive his sword head-on would be those top Ningmai experts. He was the first one to save Zuohan from Wei Sheng's hands. Wei Sheng might have previously been second to Gu Rongping, but Gu Rongping had steadily faded out of view. Wei Sheng had quickly overtaken Gu Rongping as the most promising youth of Sky Moonjia. Having gone into seclusion after the sword test conference, Wei Sheng's cultivation had skyrocketed. Everyone guessed he had found a method to break through to heart-turn sword essence. His amazing battles afterwards almost proved everyone's speculations. From following Xi Yen in the beginning, to quickly leading his own team, he battled in all directions and never lost. No matter if it was in reputation or strength, he became the first expert in Ningmai. Zhang Hao was not as good as Wei Sheng, but if the Ningmai of Sky Moonjia were ranked, he would belong to the rank of experts. However, he was usually low-key, so he was not famous. But the formation in front of him made him not know what to do. Zhang Hao had experienced too many tribulations. He did not panic upon meeting a standoff. In the end, Zuomo was just one person. No matter how strong the formation was, it needed people to control it. A formation with someone controlling it, and without, were two completely different things. Formations might have many wonders, but in the end, it was still an outside aid. After living through so many days on the blade's edge, he clearly understood that the true substance of a battle was still a matter of the two sides' strength. This was why true sword shio experts did not like using other moves. Because they themselves had enough power, and they had absolute confidence in their own strength. Zhang Hao might not be a sword shio expert, but he had the same absolute confidence in his group of people. He suddenly whistled, and everyone instantly stopped. Kill! Zhang Hao charged into the formation first, Zuohan following tightly after. The other Black Wind Bandits did not hesitate, all of them charging into the formation. Bo Feng, who saw this from a far side, Zuomo has the initiative. Having the initiative doesn't mean he is able to win, someone said. Bo Feng smiled and nodded. That's true, but we will know after watching. As Zhang Hao entered the formation, he found the scene in front of him change. He was suddenly situated in the wilderness, empty and desolate. An orange moon hung in the sky, exuding a warm light. As expected, the other had some skill. He praised inside. If possible, he would definitely have tried to get Zhuo to join the Black Wind Bandits. However, he knew it was just a delusion. The other was a core disciple of Wukong sword sect. Would they even properly look at this group of wandering bandits? He refocused and pushed down this unrealistic thought. This was not the first time he had to solve a formation, but it was the first time he had faced such a powerful formation. Even though he didn't understand the formation, but he was still confident because the opponent's cultivation was one stage below his. For Xiuzha, one stage meant a difference in the basic attribute of strength. He also had a small secret, a secret that no one knew. Heart-Turn Sword Essence. His Mountain Opener Sword Scripture had been cultivated to the stage of Heart-Turn Sword Essence. Holding the flying sword covered in a red light, he slowly proceeded. The red light became even brighter, his body covered by a seemingly tangible red shield. A 5-colored fan appeared on Zhuohan's hand. In the blink of an eye, a multicolored mist surrounded him, his figure gradually disappearing in the rainbow mist. Wei Rong's face was pale, his tall and thin figure shaking in the wind like bamboo. He stared around in terror, wanting to find his fellows, but there was no one in his sight. Zhuo's eyes were serenely cold. He was completely prepared, the Ling power of his body abnormally lively, but his mind empty and calm. The prey had entered the hunting grounds. His figure slowly became muddled and then disappeared. His first target was Zhang Hao. Take the head first. Once he got rid of Zhang Hao, the other people would become headless, and his chances of ambush would be greater. Zhang Hao's Ningmai cultivation meant that he could not face him head-on, but Zhuo had his own methods. Covered by the red light, Zhang Hao did not know that Zhuo had locked onto him. However, even if he knew, he wouldn't feel fear, but would be even more excited. Suddenly he stopped, and waved the heavy sword in his hand. A patch of red sword energies left his sword. The sword energy was extremely large, like a thick red light curtain that blocked in front of him. Ding ding ding. Several sword energies hit the red light curtain, and bounced off. Zhang Hao smirked, not slowing in his steps as he headed in the direction of the moon. The Wukong flag was a good talisman, and it was powerful. It was a pity that Zhuo's cultivation was too low, and could not release its true power. Sword energies of this degree could kill Zhuji, but it wasn't enough for Ningmai like him. He didn't know if this was controlled or just an attack of the formation. He strode towards the crescent moon. He looked to be walking slowly, but it meant he was not easily lost in the illusions. He flooded his legs with Ling power. Each step would be like a large hammer. A large hole would appear with each step. All illusions would be shattered. He was taking advantage that Zhuo's cultivation was not as high as him. This method was stupid, but it was extremely effective. Every formation would have a formation core. The core of the formation was the control center. If he could destroy the formation core, the strongest formation would still collapse in an instant. Zhang Hao steadily headed towards the moon. All kinds of sword energies along the way were blocked off. He used Ling power to seal his ears to shut off the sounds that disturbed one's mind. He only focused on walking forward. The sounds that could attack were all blocked by his heavy sword. The more he walked forward, the more confident he grew. Formations were very useful, but the difference in the two sides' power was too large. It was useless. He had taken the initiative again. Chapter 189. Brewing. Zhuo did not expect that Zhang Hao would use such a straightforward method. He did not assume that Zhang Hao would instantly find the formation core, but the desolate wood reef was just this little bit of area. With Zhang Hao's speed, it would take him less than 2 hours to cover it all. If possible, he wanted to use a similarly straightforward method like Moonchime Soundstorm to just get rid of everyone. He had enough confidence that the Moonchime Soundstorm of a 216-child formation Skyring Moonchime formation would be stronger than the formation at the Sword Test Conference, and might even get all of them in one swoop. However, he didn't have the confidence he could successfully release it. The state at the Sword Test Conference was a matter of good fortune. The number of successes that he had on releasing the Moonchime Sound Formation, with just the 72-child formation Skyring Moonchime Formation, could be counted on one hand, and a 216-child formation Skyring Moonchime Formation was many times more difficult. There were two choices in front of him. One was to get rid of Zhang Hao before he found the formation core, and the other was to get rid of everyone else while Zhang Hao was searching the formation core. Both choices had their pros and cons. Swordsmanship chose the first course of action. Of all the people in the formation, Zhang Hao was the greatest threat to Swordsmanship and to the formation. As long as the formation existed, Swordsmanship's advantage would exist. But if the formation broke, all his advantages would disappear. Without the formation, not mentioning that he had to facing the 67 Xiuzha, Zhang Hao alone was enough to make him turn and run. He might have defeated Chaoan, but used all his cunning and numerous preparations. It did not mean that he had the ability to battle with a Ningmai expert. Further adding to his troubles was the fact Zhang Hao and Chaoan were not on the same level. The two sides had not directly fought, but these two people did not dare to underestimate the other. Swordsmanship no longer had the time to think. The longer this dragged on, the more reactive he would have to be. He took out the 5-colored pagoda, which turned into a 5-colored light and flew underneath the copper hoop. The orange Buddha sound hoop completely covered the 5-colored pagoda. No one noticed that the Skyring Moonchime Formation had switched controllers. Swordsmanship took out the Wukong flag from the ground and silently sneaked closer to Zhang Hao. He had put down a lot of little illusory formations in the Skyring Moonchime Formation. 3 zhang away, Zhang Hao stopped, his face full of wariness. Swordsmanship was silently shocked. Zhang Hao seemed to have clearly detected him coming near. The other's consciousness was much weaker than his, but his sensitivity was not any lower. What he didn't know was for Xiuzha like Zhang Hao, who had lived for long periods at the edge of death, were sensitive to killing intent to a terrifying level. His aims of ambush failing, Swordsmanship saw the situation and inserted the Wukong flag into the ground. Threads of sword energies swam around the Wukong flag, suddenly gathering and spreading out. Swordsmanship took a deep breath, his right hand reaching out flat. The sword energies moving restlessly suddenly stopped. The inner sword essence suddenly exploded. Zhang Hao's expression changed slightly. His response was very quick. With a ha! The heavy sword in his hand chopped forcefully in Swordsmanship's direction. A crescent-shaped crimson sword energy left the sword and shot at Swordsmanship. Swordsmanship felt the red light flash in front of his eyes, and the other sword energy had reached him. A broad sword essence pointing at Swordsmanship's brow. Such pure sword essence. For some reason, Swordsmanship couldn't help but think of Wei Sheng Xixiang. Even though he didn't know about the present Wei Sheng Xixiang, but the other sword had been very similar to the past Wei Sheng Xixiang. The other was very skilled in sword scriptures. Swordsmanship really jumped in fright. This person had 7 to 8 tenths the power of Wei Sheng Xixiang at the sword test conference. How could he not be shocked? What he didn't know was this person, that he thought was unknown, was the head of the most terrifying and feared group of wandering bandits. Even though he was shocked, he did not panic. Swordsmanship's flat right hand turned to a point and tapped at the air in front of him. Cling! Like a sword coming out of the sheath, the silent sword energies suddenly gathered at the air 3 cun from his fingertip. His fingertip pointing at empty space, a blinding point of light. The sword energies surrounding Swordsmanship flashed with light, forming a cocoon that was composed of countless lights of various colors which shielded Swordsmanship. The broadsword essence destructively hit the point of light in front of Swordsmanship's fingertip. Boom! The red sword essence was instantly destroyed. Swordsmanship's body shook uncontrollably, taking a few steps back. The sword energies gathered at his fingertip had been scattered. It seemed that the two were even, but Swordsmanship knew he had slightly lost. The sword energies of Wukong flag came from Jindan. Usually, Swordsmanship could not completely release their full power. However, Zhang Hao's blow was enough to make the sword energies successfully feel danger. They automatically released the sword essences they carried to block the other's move. But quickly, Swordsmanship had no time to consider this. Zhang Hao's second blow came. Zhang Hao was not shocked that Swordsmanship could block his first blow. He had stolen and killed for treasure many times, and his eyes were very experienced. He knew very well what Wukong flag was like. He had great battle experience and knew what was most important at this time was to stick to the other and not give him chance to breathe and set up, especially when it was a Xiuzhi skilled in formations like Zuo. Therefore, he struck out a second blow. Zuo took a breath and pointed again. Clang! The sword energies that had been scattered once again gathered at the empty space in front of his fingertip. Boom! The power passed on by the red sword energy was much stronger than last time. Zuo felt his fingertip hurt and couldn't help but grunt, stepping several steps back. Haha! Zhang Hao laughed, feeling pleasure. He stepped forward, raising his heavy sword again. Up until now, everything was much smoother than he had imagined. As long as he killed Zuo, everything was not a problem. At this time, his heart suddenly shook. The chop of his heavy sword turned to a seal and block in front of his body. Thing! A large force came from the sword. The red light of the heavy sword in his hand flashed and blocked the other's attack. Zhang Hao was very shocked. It sounded like it was one sword energy, but what he had blocked was 3 sword energies. These 3 sword energies also came without warning, and from an unknown direction. He didn't have the time to think. He felt his heart jump. Snorting coldly, the heavy sword was placed in front of his chest as he struck his left palm heavily against the sword hilt. The heavy sword turned to a dash of red light that circled around his body. Ding ding ding. The domineering and brutal heavy sword was as nimble as a little bird as it flew around him, forming a curtain of red light. The sharp and dense sword energies could not break through this curtain of light. These sword energies were sharp and their paths were strange and hard to defend against. But to experts like Zhang Hao, other than to dragging out the fight, they were ineffective. Zhang Hao was patiently waiting for a chance. Zuo could not keep going like this. These sword energies were shockingly powerful, but the Ling power used in releasing them would also be astounding. With Zuomo's Zhuji cultivation, he would not be able to maintain it for long. And as long as he was controlling the sword energies, Zuo wouldn't be able to make any other actions. In other words, Zuo seemed to have met a dead end. His attacks could not deal a killing blow to the other, but the Ling power was not enough to support him for a long battle. Zhang Hao became slightly puzzled. He was very experienced and felt that something was not right, but he could not identify it. He decided to wait for the changes. If he could see what Zuo was doing right now, he definitely would not be so composed, and definitely would not be waiting. Formation discs flew out of Zuomo's hands, and into position around Zhang Hao. In the blink of an eye, Zuo had thrown out more than a dozen formation discs. Only when they had all been positioned did he feel slightly safer. Multitasking. Zhang Hao didn't think that Zuo could do several things at the same time. This was due to the contribution of the Great Thousand Leaf Hands. Zuo discovered that after his consciousness turned to the leaf hand, he could do multiple things at once. He was overjoyed at this discovery. It had to be said that multitasking was very useful in battle. When both sides were fighting with flying swords, one could ambush the opponent. This kind of unscrupulous strategy was the dream of countless people. But the reality was that no matter if it was sword xiu or other xiuzhi, when they were fighting against enemies at the same level, they could not multitask. They could continuously switch spells, but they definitely could not use 2 spells at the same time, unless they didn't want to win. It was not that it was impossible to cast 2 spells at once, but using 2 spells at once would decrease the power of both spells. He had never heard of an expert skilled in multitasking. Zuo was able to multitask before, but that degree was completely minuscule compared with now because of the leaf hand. Zhang Hao never thought that Zuo was able to multitask, controlling the sword energies at the same time as he set up formations. After setting up, Zuo slowly closed his eyes and pointed with his finger again. Slowly, an unspeakable aura appeared on his body. Zhang Hao's heart suddenly shook. Zuomo's presence transformed suddenly. Everything in the surroundings was very quiet, but the bad feeling in his heart became even stronger. It was like in the space above his head, there was a pair of cold eyes looking at him indifferently. Danger. A strong sense of danger suddenly appeared. All the hairs on his body stood. Zhang Hao's expression changed greatly. He believed his own intuition, the intuition that had saved him in countless bloody battles. feeling the strong terror in the heart of its master. The heavy sword flashed back into Zhang Hao's hands. Holding the familiar hilt, the terror in Zhang Hao's heart dissipated greatly. His mind jumped, not daring to hold anything back. All the Ling power in his body furiously flooded towards the heavy sword. The red light slowly flowed like a sticky liquid. Zhang Hao's eyes widened angrily. Just as he prepared to act, 3 blue chains suddenly appeared out of nowhere and headed towards him. 3rd grade formation, Dragon Tying formation. At this time, Zuo closed his eyes and had finished brewing his killing move. The earth under his feet started to crack. The fine dust from the crack seemed to have been affected by an invisible force, slowly floating upwards. On Zuo's forehead, a leaf-shaped symbol that seemed like a hand gave off a faint light, visible to all. The finger that Zuo had out was drawing in the air. The places the finger drew past, the strokes curved, and gave of a faint light like starlight. In the blink of an eye, an ancient character formed. Chapter 190, Going All In. Young Fiendish Hard Lightning, of Little Thousand Leaf Hands. Countless silver electricity snakes danced around Zhang Hao. The fine lightning tore at the air, cracking like popcorn and suddenly rampaging. Lightning was domineering and strong, usually preferred by Xiuzha. Even the sword Xiu, who usually preferred purity, did not disguise their preference for lightning. There were many lightning sword scriptures, and they were not low-grade. Due to the different kinds of lightning, the differing qualities would give the user many different abilities. Hard lightning was a very common type of lightning. It was known for being strong and evil cleansing, the natural antidote to Yin and corrupting spells. But the words Yang Fiend in front of it, then it was extremely rare. There were various ways to rank lightning, but in all these methods, the grade of Yang Fiendish Hard Lightning was never ranked lower than 4th grade. Fiend, greatly ominous in character. Hard, especially strong and unbreakable. When Yang, Fiend and Hard was put together, it was possible to see just how strong and domineering it was. Of the first 3 moves of Little Thousand Leaf Hands, Yang Fiendish Hard Lightning was the only direct offensive spell. Yet, Zuo valued this one offensive spell like it was a precious treasure. Other than his formations, this, Yang Fiendish Hard Lightning, was the strongest move he had. Starting with his killing move, Zuo did not want to risk any uncertainty. What he was still dissatisfied with was that the Yang Fiendish Hard Lightning that he cast was only 5 zhang in diameter. This was why he had to risk nearing Zhang Hao, and it was also why he had not used the move against the Black Cloud. Zuo's mind was clear, all the Ling power in his body serene, and the leaf hand created from his spiritual power was like a real hand, the fingers moving rapidly. Yang Fiendish Hard Lightning was a purely spiritual attack. Zhang Hao, who had been calculating how much Ling power Zuo had left, never would have thought Zuo would have a purely spiritual offensive spell. The electric snakes danced and instantly gathered into a burning red bolt of lightning. As the red lightning took form, a domineering and destructive presence gathered tightly around Zhang Hao. Zhang Hao had detected the abnormality when the Yang Fiendish Hard Lightning formed. It really made too much noise. His heart was in shock, and he almost couldn't believe it. How could a Zhuji use such a powerful and terrifying spell? The vast destructive presence almost took away his mind. He was very experienced and vicious. He knew that he could not retreat now. If his heart held any desire to flee, he definitely could not escape, and would only die even quicker. Going against the flow, he faced the spell. Only by finding life in death was there a chance of survival. All of his confidence and all of his conceit turned to dust in front of the Yang Fiendish Hard Lightning. Zhang Hao was like a wolf that had been pushed to the edge, rousing all of his brutality. His eyes wide, his hair standing on end, and the red light on his body was so thick it appeared to be fresh blood. The heavy sword in his hand seemed to feel its master's decision and glowed with brightness. A hint of black was added to the red light. The red-black light flashed, and the blue chains on his body were destroyed. He raised the heavy sword up high. With him as the center, a vast presence suddenly exploded. No one would doubt that his next strike could really break a mountain. Kill. Zhang Hao howled as though he was insane. With all the Ling power in his body, he cleaved downwards. The first move of mountain opening sword scripture. Open mountain. At the same time, all the Black Wind bandits in the Skyring Moonchime formation stopped what they were doing, with shock-filled faces. The presence of Zhang Hao's ultimate attack had alarmed everyone. The head was going all out? How was it possible? That was the first response from the Black Wind bandits. They couldn't wrap their heads around it. Who could force the head use all his power? Just as they were shocked, they heard Zhang Hao's angry bellow. Everyone realized that head really was fighting with all his power. The Black Wind bandits did not hesitate to fly towards the bellow. At this time, Bo Feng, who was looking from far away, suddenly gasped, his eyes lighting up. Zhang Hao is going all out. Gui Feng was slightly startled. Chang Heng did not speak, but the light that increased in his eyes revealed his surprise. The two became even more wary of Bo Feng's unmeasurable strength. The entire desolate wood reef was tightly locked down. They were very far away and could not see a thing. It was terrifying that Bo Feng could judge so accurately. However, Zhang Zhao was going all out. The sentence quickly filled their thoughts. When had Zhua Mo become so strong that he could force Zhang Hao to fight at full power? The two of them were not Zhua Mo. In the period of time they had followed Bo Feng, they had constantly tracked the Black Wind bandits and were clear regarding how strong Zhang Hao was. Gui Feng and Chang Heng knew. The other 36 Xiuzha also knew. None of the other analysis that Bo Feng did were as effective as this one sentence. Zhuji had truly forced Zhang Hao to fight at full power. So many people could feel Zhang Hao was going all out. So Zhua Mo, who was closest, could he not feel it? But at this time, he didn't have the energy to spare to think. All of his attention was on this series of attacks. As the red sword energy sliced down, Zhua Mo's vision was entirely red. That suffocating presence would make one tremble instinctively. Zhua Mo did not tremble. Completely in battle mode. There was no joy nor sorrow in his heart, no emotion at all. His mind was clear and could detect any change within 5 zhang of him. He suddenly understood. Little thousand leaf hands must be used with great thousand leaf hands to be able to reach its maximum power. Every hand motion of the spiritual leaf hand flowed across his mind. He was like a bystander, silently savoring the profound changes embodied in each hand movement. It seemed to be a long time, but it was just a short instant. The lightning of young fiendish hard lightning was as thick as an arm, twisting and giving off a faint red light. Zhang Hao's sword energy was another kind of red. A bloody red that carried hints of black. The two powerful red lights accurately clashed. Boom. A little sun suddenly formed between Zhua Mo and Zhang Hao. The Black Wind bandits that had rushed over were blinded by the light and stopped in their tracks. Some weaker Xiuzha wailed and covered their eyes. Ding ding ding. Messy chimes suddenly sounded. Pew pew pew. A bloody hole had suddenly exploded on the chest of several of the Black Wind bandits. Micro-void arrow, of the Skyring Moonchime formation. Lil Pagoda was controlling the Skyring Moonchime formation, and had grasped the rhythm perfectly. The flash of Zhang Hao and Zhua Mo's attacks had lit up without warning. Many of the Black Wind bandits had been caught unaware, and Lil Pagoda's micro-void arrow was clearly a level higher than Zhua Mo. Seeing a big hole explode in the chest of their compatriots, the other Black Wind bandits paled. Only now did they remember they were on dangerous grounds. The Skyring Moonchime formation had previously given off a feeling of a turtle formation, and had not shown any offensive qualities. This had caused them to slightly relax. That level of relaxation wasn't enough to be fatal originally. But when the news that Zhang Hao was in danger was passed to them, their instructive choice made this relaxation quickly grow. Any little change could cause an avalanche of responses. The 5-colored pagoda was Zhua Mo's soul-tethered talisman, and could be considered Zhua Mo's second mind. What Zhua Mo knew, it also knew. Zhua Mo's viciousness and cunning meant that the pagodas wasn't any less. Zhua Mo felt the leaf hand suddenly shake. A trembling came from deep within his soul. Everything around him suddenly became blurred. His spirit had been wounded. At this time, the turbulence of his energies passed into his heart. Splat. Uncontrollably he spat out a mouthful of blood. How could it easy to take in a full power attack from a Ningmai? Zuomo's state of mind could not avoid being affected by the injury to his consciousness. The terrifying presence given off by the combined sword energy and the young fiendish hard lightning made him instinctively fearful. He wanted to turn and run, but he forcefully pushed down the impulse and terror inside, his finger quickly drawing in the air. Void pass, of little thousand-leaf hands. The sword essence and lightning that had charged towards him made a strange turn and brushed dangerously past his body. At the same time, another part of Zuomo's mind controlled the sword energies of the Wukong flag. Zhang Hao looked much worse off than Zuomo. Yang Fien's hard lightning was 4th grade. Even though Zuomo's power was limited, but the strangeness of the attack method was extremely effective against Zhang Hao. At the moment the sword energy and the Yang Fiendish hard lightning struck each other, he was injured like Zuomo. At that time, his injuries were much less severe than Zuomo. The two were too close. He knew that Zuomo received heavier wounds and probably did not have the power to attack. Such a good chance to retreat. Would he waste it? In any case, Zuomo was already wounded. The rest could be left for his brothers to do. Zuomo's endless bag of strange tricks had created a psychological shadow in him. He wanted to retreat. Zhang Hao, who had decided to retreat, his expression suddenly changed. Gathering his remaining strength, he barely managed to pull the heavy sword in front of him. Clap, clap, clap. 3 sharp notes heavily struck his flying sword. It was Lil Pagid taking advantage to ambush him. If he was uninjured, the 3 microvoid arrows would just be a minor threat to him. But being heavily injured, he had almost staggered and fell to the ground. This was like the start of a nightmare. Zhang Hao, who wanted to leave the fight to find his fellows, discovered 3 blue chains came out of nowhere lightning fast and latched onto him. He instantly lost his mind. Dragon tying formation. 3 talent sword formation. Dipper formation. All 3rd grade formations. He could see it was all formations released by formation discs. The power was not strong. Usually, Zhang Hao wouldn't pay attention, but right now, they were messengers of death. How many formation discs had this guy thrown out? Zhang Hao's face was black as mud. But he was a wise man and knew he did not have an avenue of retreat now. The ball of light behind him could explode at any time. If he was hit by the ripples, he didn't have a chance of survival. Eyes red, Zhang Hao stumbled and forced his way through the formations with his heavy sword, disregarding his wounds. He was covered in blood, his clothing torn. Finally out. As the thought appeared, a sharp and dense sword energy took over his vision. His eyes only saw snowy white. He could almost see a snowy white dragon proudly swaying. Chapter 191. The first battle of the Yin Fire Bead. Zhang Hao was sliced in 2 by the Ice Dragon sword essence. Zuomo couldn't suppress his injuries anymore and spat out another mouthful of blood. That amazing Ice Dragon sword essence had not been cast by him directly, but through him using countless sword energies to construct it. The copycat sword essence was not very pure, but the power was not something Zuomo could reach himself. The sword energies of Wukong flag came from Jindan experts and were extraordinary. Already on the last of his strength, Zhang Hao did not muster a response to the sword strike. Zuomo wiped the blood from his mouth. His body was deathly tired. Using the sword formation while injured was his limit. He grinned. A bit of madness flashed through his eyes. So what if he was Ningmai? Fight with Ji'll kill you. Glancing at the corpse on the ground, Zuomo thought for a moment, and then took it into his ring. This guy probably had a lot of good things. However, it wasn't time to view his spoils, Zuomo thought regretfully. He must first resolve the ball of light. Zhang Hao's sword energy and the young fiendish hard lightning had merged into a ball of light. He really did not understand it. However, he didn't have the time to ponder it. If this thing exploded, all of Desolate Wood Reef would probably be flattened. The ball of light was like a miniature sun. Zuomo could clearly sense the terrifying Ling power contained inside. His little heart jerked and beat rapidly. He hurriedly asked, "Pu, what to do with this?" "Run." Pu Yao's response did not contain anything unnecessary. He sighed helplessly. "I'm too weak now, and can't even deal with a little thing like this." He sounded very reflective. Even Pu Yao couldn't deal with it. Zuomo's heart froze, his mouth volleying. Aren't you a sky Yao? Pu Yao smirked. It's not there are no ways, there just aren't any you could use. Zuomo paused. Did he really have to run? But on this vast expanse of ocean, where could he run? Even if he had just killed Zhang Hao, the other side still had 4 more Ningmai. He definitely would not be able to escape. No, there had to be a way. There definitely had to be a way. Zuomo said to himself. The miniature sun shook slightly. Even the ripples it gave off was frightening. The closer he went, the more Zuomo's heart shook. Inside was a brutal Ling power that could explode at any time. Such a waste of Ling power. Zuomo wanted to criticize Zhang Hao's wastefulness. This absurd thought suddenly turned to a stroke of lightning. Ling power. This light ball contained Ling power and hard lightning. Wasn't this an enormous jinxure? Except this jinxure was slightly dangerous. He opened his eyes as he had a daring idea. The trembling of the miniature sun seemed to increase. It was becoming less stable. Zuomo's heart shook. The time did not allow him to think more. The idea he just had was bold, but at least he could see hope. Different materials appeared on his hands, his speed at maximum. He wanted to have a few extra pairs of hands as he furiously set up formations. The expressions of the Black Wind bandits were both shocked and suspicious. They all stopped moving. The head's presence had completely disappeared. After that earth-shaking impact, head's presence had completely disappeared. Had the head been killed? This absurd idea was like a poisonous viper that slowly corroded their remaining courage. The big formation still existed. If the head had won, the formation definitely would have broken. Head's presence had disappeared, but the big formation was still present. Realizing that Zhang Hao was in trouble, every person's first response was to go give aid. Yet, knowing that Zhang Hao had been killed in battle, their first response was flee. In the blink of an eye, Zuomo had finished setting up a formation. What he set up was a 4-turn fire formation, one that used the light ball as a replacement for jinxure. This idea was incredibly daring. The light ball was extremely unstable and could explode at any time. From any perspective, this idea was preposterous. It might have been the stimulation of danger that caused Zuomo's thoughts to be usually clear. He swept the fire formation quickly. No mistakes. He released a breath and then his eyes became serious. Reaching out with his right hand, he started to draw in space. The second move of little thousand-leaf hands. Leaf birth. In empty space, a green character of light took form. Immediately, the character shattered and the green pieces of broken light merged into the fire formation. The green pieces of light were like seeds which rapidly germinated and grew. In the blink of an eye, the fire formation was crowded with patches of green leaves. What was miraculous was that the unstable ball of light seemed to become more stable, not giving off the feeling of danger any longer. Zuomo finally released a breath. The fire formation started to turn. The restless Ling power from the light ball was absorbed by the leaves, and turned to an endless and continuous steady flow of Ling power. Zuomo wiped the sweat off his head. He had been extremely nervous just now. If he had made the smallest mistake, this close to the ball of light, not even ashes would remain of him. Even Pu Yao hadn't dared to disturb him then. It was the first time he used little thousand-leaf hands with formations. From the present result, it seemed he had succeeded. After learning Void Pass, Zuomo had learned Leaf Birth. In Zuomo's mind, Leaf Birth had been an extremely useless spell. Its only effect was to regulate chaotic flows of Ling power. If he could regulate the Ling power of his opponent, then it meant he could resolve the other's attack. It was a pity that this Leaf Birth could only be used on the Ling power existing in the world, and did not belong to anything. The Ling power of the light ball came from Zhang Hao, but Zhang Hao was dead, so this connection had disappeared, making it orphaned Ling power. Zuomo's Yang Fiendish Hard Lightning was just taking and using Ling power that existed in the environment. Zuomo had never expected that the most useless move of the 3 moves of little thousand-leaf hands would save his life. Killing a strong enemy, staying alive after a tribulation, the joy of success, and the fear. Several emotions were tied together. The feeling was indescribable. The bright red lines of fire crossed in the air. While heat rolled away from it, Zhuomo's heart suddenly moved, and he had another idea. Why didn't he use the opportunity to temper the Buddha sound hoop? The Buddha sound hoop was almost complete. If it could be successfully tempered, then power of the big formation would definitely increase. Looking at the bright orange moon, it might have been killing Zhang Hao or merging little thousand-leaf hands with formations, but his confidence had grown. Beckoning with his hand, the Buddha sound hoop flew into the fire formation. The bright red fire was like a furious wild beast continuously gnawing on the copper hoop. Zhuomo glanced at it and shook his head. The grade of the flame that was in the fire formation was too low. The grade of the Buddha sound hoop was not low, and it was hard to temper. He suddenly thought of the golden crow fire he possessed and face-palmed. He was too dumb to have forgotten about such a good thing. The golden crow fire was the finest of fourth-grade flames, and it had a very beneficial quality of being able to easily merge to other flames. The price of golden crow fire wasn't low, but Zhuomo knew how to create it, and naturally would not be frugal. He threw 9 mini boxes into the formation. As expected, the power of the fire formation increased with the addition of 9 wisps of golden crow fire. A hint of pure gold appeared in the red fire. The Buddha sound hoop, which had been still, finally showed signs of finishing tempering. The rest required time. Zhuomo looked closely for a while, and made sure there wouldn't be any problems before he turned to leave. He shoved a large handful of Lingdan into his mouth. The Ling power inside his body shook. However, Zhuomo still could feel the weakness from the heavy damage to his body under the fullness of his Ling power. It was not wise to use medicinal power to suppress wounds. However, the battle was far from finished. He knew it was harmful to his body but still did it. Lil Pagoda was very skilled at controlling the Skyring Moonchime formation. However, those in the formation were not average people. Up until now, the greatest damage that Lil Pagoda had done to the other side was the series of attacks it had done when Zhang Hao and Zhuomo had clashed. Other than that, it had not achieved any results. None of the remaining 4 Ningmai had been injured. Zhuomo was connected to Lil Pagoda, and so he knew the situation inside the formation. He set his target on Zhuohan. With the guidance of Lil Pagoda, he could easily find Zhuohan's position. Zhuohan's figure was concealed inside a rainbow cloud of poison. When the micro-void arrow hit the poisonous mist, it did not have any effect. Zhuomo wasn't stupid enough to touch the poisonous mist. If he accidentally touched it, relying on the second-grade detoxification Dan he had made was akin to seeking death. However, in the eyes of Zhuomo, who had just killed Zhang Hao, the power of this guy who used poison was much lower than Zhang Hao. Silently sneaking near Zhuohan, a Yin fire bead appeared in Zhuomo's hand. He usually did not dare to use the Yin fire bead. This thing was incredibly powerful, but if it was exposed, the trouble it would bring would be far beyond what he could deal with. But right now, he didn't have to worry about this problem. The entire desolate wood reef was concealed by the Skyring Moonchime formation. People outside could not see a thing, and people inside were separated by illusory formations. It was definitely a good chance to use the Yin fire bead. Originally, he had planned to use it in Zhang Hao, but Zhang Hao had detected him coming closer, so the first battle of this Yin fire bead landed on Zhuohan. Zhuohan was completely ignorant that Zhuomo had already come close to him. His heart was insecure. The other people were still doubtful, but he was almost certain that the head was already dead. In the middle of the wilderness, he felt the surroundings were cold. Even with the protection of the poison mist, he couldn't feel a hint of warmth. The only thing that reassured him was the orange moon in the sky had become much dimmer. The formation probably couldn't not be maintained for much longer. Up until now, he had not encountered one other person. His expression changed. It came again. Ding ding ding. 3 invisible sound arrows entered the poisonous mist. Just like the previous times, he lightly channeled Ling power. The poisonous mist flowed strangely, and the 3 sound arrows disappeared. The other was always very sudden in sending sound arrows. However, his poisonous mist was the perfect counter of straightforward spells. Ding ding ding. A storm of sound arrows shot at him without warning. Zhuohan was very calm. The poisonous mist slowly flowed around him. The sound arrows that entered the mist seemed to have sunk into quicksand, rapidly disappearing. A small cold smile suddenly floated into his dark face. It was useless. Suddenly, he detected a small object had hit his poisonous mist. It wasn't a sound arrow. His expression abruptly changed. He instantly reacted. The storm of sound arrows had been to provide a cover for this little object. Damn it! The outside layer of the poisonous mist was dyed a bone white. Coldness followed the white color as it spread with astonishing speed. Terrified, Zhuohan didn't have the time to even make a response. The coldness blew through his body like the wind. He froze to his spot, his body a frozen and eerie white statue. Frightened expression shown to all. Chapter 192, Buddha Sound Hoop. Zhuohan crumbled away in the wind, only leaving behind a few talismans. The poisonous fan and mist had been frozen into ice by the fire bead. Despite this, Zhuomo didn't feel it a pity. That poison fan was not very endearing, and the glow of the remaining talismans were very good. It was a pity there wasn't the time to admire them one by one, so Zhuomo threw it all into his ring. Zhuomo sighed. What he sighed at was not the power of the fire bead, but the maxim, "We are sword xiao, whatever we need we will take it with our sword," that the sect leader and others always said. Battle was truly one of the fastest ways to gather wealth. He had just killed 2 Ningmai, and the talismans and Jingshi he received were enough for him to feel his wallet swell up. With the powerful fire bead as his support, and the temptation of extreme wealth, Zhuomo's eyes turned red. His gaze as he turned on the other Xiuzhe was like he was staring at a delicious and fat sheep. So much Jingshi. At the same time, a Buddha sound rang out. A bright gold light appeared inside the formation, and headed for the clouds. Joy came only Zhuomo's face. The tempering of the Buddha sound hoop was complete. The Buddha sound hoop had turned from red to gold, and did not feel like copper, but a hoop of gold. Lightning occasionally flashed across the golden hoop. Had the hard lightning from the ball of light also been absorbed by the Buddha sound hoop? Zhuomo was overjoyed. Each time the lightning flashed, the Buddha sound hoop would sound out with a deep and dignified ring. At this time, the environment of the Skyring Moonchime Formation suddenly changed. A bright sun hung high up in the sky, warm golden light falling down. The thin strands that fell down were dyed gold. The rings of light on the gold wire turned from a clear moon color to gold. The serenity of before was swept away. The feeling of the present formation was like standing under the sun, destroying all evil. The remaining Black Wind bandits felt something completely different. Before it was like they were in the wilderness, scary and dark. Now they stood before a burning sun. They had moved from a cold wilderness to a hot and burning desert. When touched by the ripples of Buddha sounds, those with weaker minds easily lost all of their motivation. The Black Wind bandits inside the formation were all cruel people who lived on a knife's edge. Their minds were not so weak, but they felt wave after wave of pressure. The previous Skyring Moonchime Formation made people wary of the sudden ambushes. The present formation demanded that they channel Ling power at all times to defend against the Buddha sounds. The offensive power of the formation was stronger now. No wonder Zhuomo was so happy. It was like someone delivered a pillow to him just when he wanted to nap. With the fire bead and the completely transformed new formation, his chances of victory had risen against this group of bandits. Zhuomo quickly changed ideas. Previous, he had planned to wound as many as possible. Now he decided to not let even one of them go. Each one was so much Jingshi. These criminals whose hands were soaked in blood. Let Ji release you from your mortal coil. Zhuomo thought righteously. At this time Zhuomo was like an experienced hunter. He wasn't in a hurry to pull close the net. His consciousness was connected to Lil Pagoda. He slowly went through all the changes in the new formation. The changes of the Buddha sound hoop were so drastic even he needed to accustom himself. The Black Wind bandits inside the formation started to panic. The head's presence had disappeared, his status unknown. After landing inside the formation, they had become like a crowd of flies, not knowing what to do. The new formation increased the pressure on them. The sounds that permeated everywhere needed to be fended off with Ling power, further increasing their consumption. They were not greenhorns. What they were most afraid of was situations like this when they needed to keep using Ling power. On the battlefield, Ling power was the greatest support of a Xiuzha, and experienced Xiuzha would carefully control the consumption of their Ling power. Lil Pagoda really lived up to being a soul-tethered talisman. The new changes of the Buddha sound hoop flowed through Zhuomo's mind. Zhuomo instinctively praised it, and hadn't expected a joyful emotion to pass on to him from Lil Pagoda. Zhuomo first stilled and then was stunned. Did Lil Pagoda really have its own emotions and thoughts? The formation process of Lil Pagoda had been very mysterious. Zhuomo still felt there were many impossible places even now, but in his eyes Lil Pagoda was just a talisman. It originated from his consciousness, and was connected to his mind. Usually Lil Pagoda would frequently reveal a personality, but Zhuomo only felt it only a rudimentary intelligence. He had never thought that Lil Pagoda would really have his own sense of self. When a talisman developed its own sense of self, it was called Ling cognition. The thought that came from Lil Pagoda made Zhuomo realize that Lil Tower had Ling cognition. Heavens! How was it possible? Any talismans that could have Ling cognition were the finest and greatest talismans without an exception. Zhuomo felt that he was very lucky that he had a soul-tethered talisman, and had stumbled into a pile of Jingshi. A soul-tethered talisman that had Ling cognition. Oh! The sudden good fortune made Zhuomo vibrate in excitement. His eyes glowed as he looked at Lil Pagoda as though he wanted to shove Lil Pagoda into his mouth. Lil Pagoda instantly shrank back timidly, the 5 levels of its body shaking. Come, good son, let daddy take a good look at you. Zhuomo drooled as he beckoned at Lil Pagoda, his expression unspeakably wretched. Lil Pagoda could be considered to be half a son of his. Its Ling cognition came from his consciousness. Lil Pagoda's body shrunk into a ball and trembled. After closely examining for a while, he could not see anything. Helplessly, he could only release Lil Pagoda. He pondered that he needed to take the time sometime to recall how he had forged Lil Pagoda. He dreamed of himself surrounded by light, a procession of soul-tethered Ling cognition talismans that did not end behind him. It would be amazing. He would only steal from wandering bandits. Anyone that would resist, all the soul-tethered talismans would bang down on their heads. Fantasizing about himself grandly sweeping all directions, something suddenly hit his waist. Looking down, he found it was Lil Pagoda. Zhuomo refocused and wiped the saliva off the corner of his mouth. Lil Pagoda was reminding him the wandering bandits wanted to flee. Flee. Zhuomo snickered coldly. Before he had still been wary. Now this remaining bunch of wandering bandits were just meat on the chopping board. The Buddha sound hoop had risen to 4th grade previously. The tempering this time had not increased its grade, but the power had risen. It had fire, sound, and lightning. The fire was the golden crow fire that could rank in the top 10 of 4th grade fire. The lightning was 4th grade Yang Fiend hard lightning. The only regret would probably be the Buddha sound formation carved on the hoop. It was only 3rd grade. Otherwise, this Buddha sound hoop would definitely be a rare top-level 4th grade talisman. But even so, the present Buddha sound hoop definitely could be an upper-level 4th grade talisman. After talismans reached the 4th level, due to the increase in power, they needed to be divided even further. 4th grade talismans, the highest were the top level. They were the most outstanding 4th grade talismans. Coming down, it was the upper, intermediate, and lower levels. However, talismans that were soul-tethered and had Ling cognition like Lil Pagoda were above the top level. The upper 4th grade Buddha sound hoop, adding on the soul-tethered talisman Lil Pagoda that had Ling cognition, the Een fire bead that could instantly kill Ningmai, and the 3rd grade seal soldier that Zhuomo had not used yet. Zhuomo's confidence rose. He discovered that he had so many killing moves. Such a good chance. Would Zhuomo let these Black Wind bandits escape? Lil Pagoda flew into the sky, once again taking control of the big formation. The light illusions of the big formation changed. The Buddha sound hoop slightly vibrated, waves of sound passing outwards like water. Inside the formation, the Black Wind bandits felt the scenery changing. The pressure that had been somewhat ethereal before became strong. Calls rang out in their ears. A strong feeling of numbness made them unconsciously stop moving, like there was a voice muttering in their minds. Sleep, just sleep for a while. Their eyelids were strangely heavy, the weariness disappearing from their hearts. Their hearts gradually became calm, the desire for sleep increasingly strong. The Black Wind Bandits were very experienced. Pushing away their fright, they could only speed up the circulation of their Ling power to fend against the sound. They finally realized the longer it dragged, the more disadvantageous it was for them. They all sent their killing moves at almost the same time. Numerous sword energies and talismans shone as they rushed into the sky, shooting for the burning sun in the sky. The last attack of the Black Wind Bandits before their death frightened Zuo. The smugness in his heart instantly dissipated. His little heart beat rapidly. If the target of their attacks was him, not even dust would be left behind. Clang! The Buddha sound hoop suddenly shook. The golden light exploded. The sound was like thunder. The deep and dignified sound turned into the angry shout of Buddha, strong and fierce. The Black Wind Bandits inside the formation felt their bodies shake, the Ling power inside their body out of their control. Everyone's faces changed. When they raised their heads, their faces became pale. Countless fist-sized hard lightning rolled down along the thin strands like marbles. The big formation turned at its highest power. A deep and domineering presence destructively spread, unable to be stopped. Zuo gaped. So powerful. The counterattack from the Buddha sound hoop wasn't any less powerful than the moonchime sound storm of the sword test conference. The Buddha sounds were like anger, and the hard lightning like rain. The Black Wind Bandits lost their minds. These fist-sized hard lightning wasn't as strong as when Zuo used them, but this was still the true Yang Fiend hard lightning. The domineering Buddha sounds had not disappeared. Their Ling power out of their control. Just as the hard lightning fell upon them, wails and swearing entered Zuo's ears. The body count was high. After this one attack, not even 30 of the Black Wind Bandits could still stand. Many Black Wind Bandits were wailing and groaning in puddles of blood. The faces of the still-standing Black Wind Bandits were full of hopelessness, their eyes terrified, peerlessly domineering. Zuo sighed in shock, and then felt heart pain. The golden light and lightning around the body of the Buddha sound hoop was clearly much dimmer than before. He hurriedly took the Buddha sound hoop back. If this happened again, the Buddha sound hoop would probably be destroyed. Even if it wasn't destroyed, the grade would definitely drop. It had been so difficult to obtain an upper 4th grade talisman. Could Zuo bear to have it destroyed? Even more, the wandering bandits that had lost all motivation, and he didn't need the Buddha sound hoop to subdue them anymore. He and Lil Pagoda could get them. The harvest was about to begin. His gaze was hot as he turned back to the formation, rubbing his hands. Lil Pagoda, connected to his mind, was also yearning and excited. Just at this time, Puyao suddenly came out. Wait. Chapter 193, Bountiful Harvest. When Puyao came out, Zuo's first response was, 2 hours haven't passed yet. He was still thinking about the promise that Puyao had made. If he could get rid of this group in under 2 hours, he would learn the next move of Little Thousand Leaf Hands. Zuo hungered for the Little Thousand Leaf Hands. Of the 3 moves of Little Thousand Leaf Hands that he had learned, each move had played a crucial role in this battle. The Little Thousand Leaf Hands were all very good spells. If they were not powerful, then they had special uses. Most importantly, what it consumed was spiritual power and not Ling power. To Zuo presently, spells that use spiritual power were much more practical than spells that use Ling power. I changed my mind, Puyao said. Hearing this, Zuo was infuriated. What did you say? Changed your mind? I just finished busting my ass off, and you changed your mind? Puyao waved his hands. He wasn't angry. I'll teach you a move of Little Thousand Leaf Hands. Zuo's anger instantly extinguished and turned to curiosity. Then what did you change your mind about? One move of Little Thousand Leaf Hands, being guaranteed. He naturally was calm. These people should not be killed, Puyao said, his expression deep. Not be killed. Zuo stilled. Keep them for what? These people don't blink an eye when they kill. it would cause problems to keep them. From any angle, Zuomo was not a generous and kind person. Also, to speak of kindness with these wandering bandits that killed without batting an eye, that was purely seeking death. It was better to take everything from their bodies and then kill them. Constructing the nether pool requires manual labor, Puyao said. Oh, you aren't afraid of them rebelling? Zuomo pointed at the crux. I am a Sky Yao. Puyao rolled his eyes. The implicit meaning was, to a honored Sky Yao, this was just a little problem. Zuomo smirked and didn't give him any face. Sky Yao? Who told me to run back there? Puyao paused, his old face slightly red. Zuomo didn't dare to provoke this guy. He pointed at the Black Wind bandits inside the formation, and said, manual laborers don't need talismans, right? Puyao waved his hand generously. No. Zuomo looked with some sympathy at the wandering bandits. Landing in the hands of a perverse Renyao, it was a fate worse than death. It could be imagined just how dark their future days would be. However, Zuomo was not kind due to feeling sympathy. He and Lil Pagoda, one in the light and one in the dark, used the power of the formation to beat the wandering bandits unconscious. Zuomo didn't even leave them any clothing, taking everything before he contentedly threw a bunch of naked people at Puyao. The Skyring Moonchime Formation, and the moon in the sky disappeared from the desolate wood reef. There was nothing left except one big pit after another, showing that a battle had taken place here. Bo Feng, who had been watching from afar, shook his head, his tone carrying wonderment. It seems all of the Black Wind bandits are dead. The Black Wind bandits were dead. As the words came out, everyone was shocked. They had been pursuing the Black Wind bandits recently. The longer they trailed them, the more uncertain they felt. The strong strength that the Black Wind bandits displayed made them lack self-confidence. The only confidence they had was that they had more experts on their side. Bo Feng, Gui Feng, and Chang Heng were Ningmai experts that were famous in Sky Moonjia. But even if they had 3 experts, they had thought if the two sides met it would be a hard battle. Who would have thought a Zhuji, relying on a formation on an island, in a period of time less than 2 hours, had completely killed all of the Black Wind bandits? Chang Heng and Gui Feng looked at the desolate wood reef, which had resumed its normal appearance, and instantly understood. Gui Feng's expression was full of disbelief. He had fought Zuomo before. Anyway he viewed Zuomo, Zuomo should not have grown to such a point that he could kill all of the Black Wind bandits by himself. If it was Wei Sheng, he would have found it somewhat possible. Cheng Heng looked much more composed. Even the light in his eyes had dimmed greatly. He seemed to be pondering something. Zuomo did not know people were watching him. He was contentedly checking his spoils, Lil Pagoda observing from the side. Silly Bird had ran out. However, Silly Bird was much more composed than Lil Pagoda, raising her neck up high, her attitude proud as she stepped her little bird steps, as though she thought of Jingshi as dirt. However, the occasional glance out of the corner of her eye revealed her nefarious aims. The black gold worm directly burrowed into the little mountain, and didn't come out. The other shitty came out. They felt as though they were dreaming. They first saw Zuomo Shixiang, and then they saw the mountains of talismans in Jingshi. After that, they turned to stone. Zuomo's eyes were bright, saliva dripping out of the corner of his mouth that he did not wipe away. Good things. Good things. He picked up one, and then picked up another, his expression intoxicated, and occasionally laughed. However, the practical Zuomo decided he needed to check his personal wealth. He might have made a mountain of profit, but he had also spent a lot. No matter if it was golden crowfire or fire bead, they were not cheap. The cost of recovery for his wounds, and the nurturing of the Buddha sound hoop were also not going to be a small number. He needed to break even. Click-clack, click-clack, Zuomo started to pick through the pile. He rejoiced that he had the experience of processing materials with the stalagmite fire before. The numbers of items that had passed through his hands was enormous, and helped create his keen pair of eyes. The profits this time were very rich. There were more than 100 flying swords, but their grades weren't very high. The highest grade was Zhang Hao's heavy sword, 4th grade. The sword body was ancient and thick, extremely heavy in the hand, and carved with mountain opener. Other than flying swords, There was a variety of talismans that broadened Zhuomo's horizons. There were some extremely obscure ones, like nets. One blue light net, 3rd grade. When it left the hand it would become a blue ball of light. If one came close then it would turn into an enormous net that would quickly close. The wealth of the Zhuji was limited. Those that were rich were the several Ningmai, especially Zhang Hao. This guy had 2-dimensional rings to start with, and the riches inside were numerous. Also, the guy had been very picky, and what he had kept were very good items. Like the materials he collected were not of low grade. The majority were 3rd grade, and he had some 4th grade materials. What excited Zhuomo the most were 5 fox teeth. These 5 fox teeth clearly came from the same Yao fox. Each tooth was pure white with no impurities, shining like porcelain. A fragrance that was like orchids and plums spread. The appearance showed it definitely belonged to the top 3rd grade materials. The quality of the water drop sword was very good. If he forged in the 4th grade crimson fire rock that he had, the 2 qualities of fire and water could reach the demands of Li water sword essence. Adding on the teeth fine, and these 5 fox teeth, and the blue icicle crystal he had traded for from the red-robed male, he had managed to gather the materials for 4 of the 5 flying swords. Instantly, he felt the 5 essence sword set was not far. He was only lacking proper earth-based material before his 5 essence sword set could be realized. Most of the talismans on Zhang Hao's body were not ordinary, but most had been damaged. Zhuomo felt a great pain. Those were all lost Jingshi. The other talisman that piqued Zhuomo's interest was a cloak. This cloak was called Shadowless. It was as thin as a cicada's wing and hard to detect with the naked eye. If worn on the body, it would seem to disappear. However, even though he could not see it, Zhuomo could still feel the existence of the cloak. This shadowless cloak's only purpose was to conceal his body. Zhuomo was even more surprised that it was a 4th grade cloak. He tried it on, and the effect was outstanding. He couldn't find a trace even if he used his consciousness to search. Good thing. This was definitely a good thing. Zhuomo instantly recognized the value of the cloak. This was a wonderful talisman to make an escape. If things were going badly, he could wrap the cloak around his body and no one could find him. He found it somewhat strange the person he had killed didn't use a talisman as good as this, and used a 3rd grade cloak. What Zhuomo didn't realize was the Black Wind bandits had run rampant for years. Other than being defeated by Wei Xing recently, when had they ever been forced to escape? When Zhang Hao first got the cloak, he treasured it. Then he found he didn't have a use for it at all. While the cloak could conceal him, it basically had no defensive power. So Zhang Hao switched to a 3rd grade talisman that could increase his defenses, and was beneficial to charging and fighting. Zhuomo naturally wouldn't be polite, cheerfully putting the cloak on. With 2 extremely fine talismans as the opener, Zhuomo instantly looked down at the remaining talismans. However, these people all had a unique quality of carrying mini Jingshi on their body. Zhuomo understood after thinking about it. These wandering bandits traveled everywhere. Nothing was as useful as Jingshi, so they could buy whatever when they got somewhere. All of this was Zhuomo's now. This was an enormous sum. Like Zhang Hao, he had more than 10 pieces of just 4th grade Jingshi. When he put all the Jingshi in front of him, he was stunned. He felt that his eyes were filled with Jingshi. Even the best talisman, if put together with Jingshi of equivalent value, it didn't have the same effect as piles of Jingshi. After a long while, he finally recovered from the shock of the mountain of Jingshi, his blank eyes becoming clear. He took a deep breath, and hurriedly swept the Jingshi into his ring. Continuing to judge the other talismans, his mind was slightly inattentive. Pu Yao's voice suddenly came into Zhuomo's ears. Zhuomo shook and suddenly refocused. He found that Pu Yao had appeared at some unknown time beside him. Pu Yao stared at a white bone on his hand, his eyes unmoving. Zhuomo instinctively waved the bone. Problem? Pu Yao was still staring at the bone, his hand reaching out. Let me see. Oh, Zhuomo instinctively handed over the bone. Once he handed it over, he instantly realized, and regret blossomed. He was an idiot. Something that even Pu Yao was interested in. It definitely was something good. Having landed in Pu Yao's hands, it definitely was using meat buns to hit a dog. It would never return. As expected, Puyao flipped his hand, and the bone disappeared. He was very natural in saying, "Oh, I'll take the bone." Zuo instantly wanted to spit blood. He knew he definitely wouldn't be able to take it back. He responded quickly, "Then what do you trade for it?" "I'll give you a batch of little Yao guards." Puyao didn't give Zuo the grounds to bargain. Little Yao guards? What's that? Zuo's attention was instantly attracted. Puyao snickered. "You'll know when it is time." Finishing, he disappeared. Dejectedly, Zuo could only go back to his pile of talismans in hopes he would find a few more fine ones. It was a pity that his good luck seemed to have been used up. The rest were all very average and made him even more depressed. When he finished sorting out the last talisman, he suddenly heard a light laugh from the sky. Brothers were really had a good harvest. Chapter 194. Golden Armor Guards. Zuo looked warily at the three unwelcomed guests in the sky. The one that spoke was a yellow-faced man. Zuo recognized him. It was the mysterious person he had fought in the sword test conference. The two people behind him was Chong Heng, and the other was Gui Feng. How did these three get together? He muttered inside. And these three appeared at this time. Was that a coincidence? More likely it was that the three of them had hid and wanted to gain something. Seeing that he had won, they could only come out and greet him. Zuo was at the end of his rope. He didn't dare to let these three people inside. The three were stronger than him, and he had just also made a fortune. If the three became greedy, he might not be able to keep his little life. This little brother just has gone through a big battle, and is heavily injured, and greatly needs rest. There is no time to greet everyone. Please pardon me. Finishing, he rushed away. That nimble and agile movement. Did he look like he was heavily injured? The three people in the air were speechless. They had assumed that Zuo would exchange pleasantries, and they could find ways of getting closer. But they had underestimated Zuo's lack of shame in turning and leaving. They couldn't do a thing. If they forcefully landed now, that was taking advantage and declaring they possessed malicious aims. The three people didn't care about those fake reputations, but when they saw the huge holes in the ground, they instantly dismissed the idea of charging in. Personally, seeing the Black Wind Bandits be destroyed, the three were very wary of the formation on Desolate Wood Reef. Zuo ignored the three people. If they really dared to charge into the Desolate Wood Reef, he would even gamble on destroying the Buddha Sound Hoop to fight them to the death. When he saw the three standing outside the island, his heart relaxed slightly. He secretly sent Lil Pagoda out to guard. He threw the Buddha Sound Hoop back into the lava fire formation to be nurtured again, and started to heal himself. This time, the level of damage to his body was far beyond his predictions, especially since he had kept on fighting with these wounds, and had used medicinal power to suppress the injuries. On the surface, there didn't seem to any problems, but in reality, he had serious internal injuries. Luckily, Master had prepared mini Lingdan for him before he left. He hadn't thought he would need to use it so early. He shoved the Lingdan into his mouth and meditated. As the Lingdan entered his mouth, it turned to a stream of coldness that flowed with the circulation of his Ling power, spreading to every corner of his body. The hidden heat of his organs instantly decreased. He felt unspeakably comfortable. 42 people were soaking in the black pond. Their eyes were closed, occasionally having expressions of pain. Threads of smoke silently entered their body from the black pond water, and then slowly spread out. Puyao's eyes landed on the three Ningmai Black Wind Bandits. They were completely covered in black, looking like coal. A small bump had risen on the foreheads of the three people, as though something was going to grow out. Puyao played with the white bone in his hand, speaking to himself. Didn't think I would see ancient dragon bone here. The brat really has good luck. Oh, using it on Ningmai trash, it really is a waste. As he sighed, he slightly applied force. The white bone broke into pieces. His hand rising, the ancient dragon bone power turned to three white arrows that burrowed inside the bodies of the three Ningmai. The three Ningmai instantly started to shake like dice, their black faces twisted with expressions of extreme pain. Suddenly, Their black skin started to ripple and a layer of scale-like material continuously came out. In just this little while the three had completely changed. Their bodies were covered by a dense layer of white scales like it was a layer of thick armor. The bump on their foreheads continued to grow. Pew! A sharp black horn broke through the skin, and only stopped when it grew to 3 cun long. White scale attendants. The ancient dragon bone is really good. Puyao had a surprised expression. Then he became excited. Tilting his head and thinking, he snickered, and then grabbed at empty air. 3 jade boxes appeared on Puyao's hands, the mini boxes that Swordsmanship loved so much. Squeezing the jade boxes, Puyao gently blew and 3 wisps of golden crow fire flew at the 3 people. The golden crow fire landed on the white scales and with a hiss and entered their bodies. Almost at the same time, mist rose around their body. The black pond water beside them started to bubble as though it was boiling. Seeing that the black pond was covered in mist, Puyao became even more excited. He was like a mischievous child who had found a fun toy. He grabbed again at empty air. Ding ding ding. If Swordsmanship saw this, he would have been so angry he could spit blood. Puyao's hands were full of crimson fire rock, including 3 pieces of 4th grade crimson fire rock. Swordsmanship only had 6 pieces of 4th grade crimson fire rock. Puyao took half of his stock. Puyao's left hand pointed in the air. A black-red beguiling flame appeared in front of him. He threw the crimson fire rock on his hands into the flame. He continued to grab at the air, materials appearing in his hands. He didn't even look before throwing them into the fire. After 1 hour, the flame slowly faded, and 3 entirely red broadsword appeared in front of him. The broadsword was about half the height of a person, the width of the blade making them appear like a small door. The body was entirely red like burning metal, giving off a scorching heat. At this time, the mist over the heads of the 3 people in the black pond dissipated, revealing their figures. The scales of the 3 were dyed with a layer of gold, making them look as though they were wearing golden armor. The black spike on their foreheads had disappeared. Before, the 3 had looked dark and scary. Now the 3 didn't have any hint of dark energies, as though they were gods coming to the mortal world. A young and strong presence was easily detectable. Ancient dragon bone, golden crow fire, nether pool. These Yao guards that were forged really make me anticipate. Puyao smiled proudly. White-scaled attendants, no, have to change the name. Golden armor guards. This name isn't bad. Haha, who can tell they are Yao guards? Rubbing his chin as he studied for a while, Puyao said to himself, "Oh no, they are too ugly and need to be changed." He blew out a ball of flame that grew and enveloped one of them. Instantly, the crackle of flesh burning sounded. A while later, the flame moved away. The person inside the flame had changed in appearance. Right now, his body was covered in a set of golden armor. Even his face was covered all over, the thick armor at the front only revealing the eyes. The shining golden scales had turned into a golden fish scale armor. Other than being very dignified, it was more profound and mysterious. Puyao finally had a satisfied expression. Soon after, all 3 were modified. 3 bright red broadswords turned to 3 red lights and flew towards the 3 people. The 3 simultaneously reached out and grabbed the flying swords. The 3 golden armor guards stood silently, a strong and dignified presence slowly spreading. Puyao looked in sympathy at the other black wind bandits that were still soaking in the black water pond. You guys who can't be seen in public, you just have to stay here for manual labor. When Swordsmanship woke up from his meditation, there was joy in his heart. The injuries on his body were generally healed. It would be like nothing had happened once he rested for a while. What he was even happier about was the Ling power that had stopped growing inside his body for a long time had actually grown slightly. The increase was not a lot, but for Swordsmanship who had stopped growing for a long time, this was an unexpected happy surprise. Just as Swordsmanship was happy, he saw Puyao proudly come over with 3 people dressed in golden armor. Swordsmanship stilled and warily pointed at the 3 people. Who are they? The 3 were covered in the golden armor. He was unable to see their features, but Swordsmanship could feel the terrifying presence the 3 gave off all over their bodies. These 3 were very strong. Swordsmanship's perception was extremely sensitive due to his spirit. The danger that these three gave him even surpassed the feeling of danger the head of the wandering bandits gave him. Where did these three powerful people come from? Where did they pop out of? His gaze landed on the broadswords in their hands, and silently swallowed. Who was so fucking wasteful? Crimson Fire Rock, definitely not less than 10 pieces, and definitely had more than one piece of 4th grade rock. Sky Eye Silver, that was extremely expensive. Zhuemo himself only had 3 tails. Any of the broadswords in the three's hands definitely had 1 tail of Sky Eye Silver added. And the red flame pearl. It was an extremely good fire element material, worth 1,000 jing. There were at least 3 in each broadsword. Great expenditure. Definitely great expenditure. Zhuemo drooled. Just the 3 broadswords were worth a lot. If it wasn't the dangerous feeling coming from the 3 people pressuring him, his head might have heated up, and he would have gone to rob them. But the materials, they looked very familiar. Just as he was suspicious, he heard Pu Yao say smugly, "They are golden armor guards. Just finished making them, do you want to try?" Golden armor guards? Zhuemo stilled. Didn't you say you were creating little Yao guards? Little Yao guards are too low quality, Pu Yao said with scorn and continued, and their appearance is too lacking. Look at these golden armor guards. No hint of yin energy, perfect for dominating a situation. They are also very strong and good at fighting, the best fighters. Really? Zhuemo's face was disbelieving. You ignorant country bumpkin naturally has never seen anything this high quality. Pu Yao's face was full of disdain, and he snapped his fingers. Suddenly, one of the golden armor guards behind him disappeared. Huh. A deep bellow sounded. Zhuemo felt the space in front of his eyes light up, a blinding light forcing him to squint his eyes. A domineering and forceful red sword light rose. This stroke seemed to rip apart space. A scorching, cruel, and domineering presence filled the air. Zhuemo's heart was shocked, the hairs on his body straight. The feeling of danger was like a black cloud filled with lead, pressing down uncomfortably on his chest. The sword light disappeared without warning. At some unknown time, the golden armor guard returned to his original position. Only now did Zhuemo hear a soft hiss. Different than the blinding sword light, the sound of the sword was almost non-existent. Zhuemo was stunned. Chapter 195. 2 transactions. The strength of the golden armor guards made a deep impression on Zhuemo, but what are they really? Zhuemo asked as he pointed at the 3 muscle heads. The 3 golden armor guards were very brawny. Standing with their swords, they were like 3 little mountains whose sole purpose was to pressure others. Puppets, Pu Yao said softly. Oh, Zhuemo responded. A strong impulse formed to study these 3 puppets. There were many ways to create puppets. The most famous would probably be corpse forging. Things like 1,000-year corpse were the best corpse forging materials. Seal soldiers were also one kind of puppet, but they were completely different than corpse forging. But when he thought about that astonishing sword strike, he decided to stop thinking about this dangerous idea. His eyes stared at the red broadswords in the hand of the 3 golden armor guards. A beat later, Zhuemo's heart-wrenching wail came out of the cave. Old ghost. Go will kill you. Sob sob sob. My crimson fire rock. My sky eye silver. In the sky above the desolate wood reef. How much longer do we have to wait? Chang Heng said impatiently. He would come out soon. Bo Feng was very calm. At the side, Gui Feng's eyes occasionally swept across the desolate wood reef. Different than what they had thought. It wasn't just Zhuemo on the desolate wood reef. There were also Wukong sword sect disciples. However, these disciples were all production Xiuzha. At the beginning, these disciples would occasionally look up at them. As time went on, they attended to their own business. The desolate wood reef looked calm, but many important places were covered with white clouds so nothing could be seen. These balls of cloud proved that the big formation of the desolate wood reef had not been critically damaged. Gui Feng felt that Zhuemo was very mysterious. He was somewhat puzzled why Wukong sword sect would send such an important disciple to such an isolated place. Was it because they had trust in Zhuemo? He didn't feel that way. While the importance of the desolate wood reef was undoubted, no matter how great their trust was, the elders shouldn't have been frugal in sending along a few more strong disciples with him. Such an accomplished disciple, he didn't believe any sect was willing to lose him. But Zuomo was guarding desolate wood reef alone. This made Guifeng feel it was more of an exile. The Black Wind bandits had all been killed. If this news spread, it would definitely shake all of Sky Moonjia. Zuomo's own reputation and the reputation of Wukong sword sect would be pushed to another height. Guifeng glanced at Bofeng. There was no impatience on Bofeng's face. They had been guarding here for 5 days. To show that they didn't have any enmity, he hadn't brought any of the 36 Shuji. Guifeng saw Zuomo's figure appear out of the corner of his eye, his mind becoming alert. His gaze swept across the 3 enormous figures behind Zuomo. Guifeng's pupils suddenly shrunk into pinpoints. The golden scale armor covered their entire body. The dense scales flashed with a pure golden sheen. Their faces were covered by gold masks, which only revealed a pair of eyes. The 3 guards dressed in golden armor simultaneously looked at the 3 people in the sky. When Guifeng's eyes met the 3 people's eyes, his heart shook. The 3 pairs of eyes were strange but all similar in that they were indifferent, cold and emotionless. Guifeng even felt that they were dead. He could feel that he was just an ant in their eyes, unable to cause even a ripple. Suddenly, Guifeng felt he was burning in a fire, an almost tangible pressure forming, and pushing down like a little mountain. Guifeng snorted coldly, his body moving slightly and circulated his Ling power. The invisible pressure around him instantly disappeared. Successfully getting rid of the other's pressure, Guifeng did not feel joy at all. Quite the opposite, his complexion was very bad. The two seemed to be even, but Guifeng knew he was at a disadvantage. Such a powerful expert. Was this Wukong sword sect's hidden strength? He narrowed his eyes. Bofeng and Changheng's expressions became serious. Their thoughts were the same as Guifeng. These 3 Xiuzha covered in golden armor and cultivations above Ningmai, and their strength was very strong. Even though they could not see the features, but the thick killing intent covering the 3 was the killing intent that would only form after countless battles. No wonder the Black Wind bandits were all killed. So the desolate wood reef was also hiding 3 experts. The 3 people rejoiced that they hadn't charged in. Facing any of these golden armor Xiuzha, even Bofeng didn't have a certain grasp on victory. Ningmai had 3 stratums. Guifeng and Changheng were only at the first stratum, but the 3 golden armor Xiuzha were all above second stratum. The difference between Ningmai and Juji was large, but the difference between Ningmai were also similarly large. The cultivation of Ningmai second stratum was 3 times that of a first stratum Ningmai. Their cultivation was not as good as the other. Their battle experience not as good as the other. Their talismans. They looked at the burning red broadswords. Those were clearly not normal and definitely had reached the 4th grade. The 2 sides were even. What they had the greatest confidence in was spells. Guifeng was very confident in the 9 ghost nail curse that he was practicing. In Zuomo's sea of consciousness, Puyao muttered, "Pity about the Baldi. He's good material for making golden armor guard." Zuomo did not pay attention, his eyes looking at the sky. This time, with the 3 golden armor guards around him, even though his wounds had not completely healed, he still had more bravery. "Thank you for waiting for so long. Is there something I can help with?" Zuomo did not like to chit-chat, and said forwardly. Bofeng did not twist and said, "This one has 2 matters to ask." Oh, Zuomo was slightly surprised. He hadn't thought the other really had a matter, and 2 of them at that. "Brother Zua killing the Black Wind bandits is really a happy matter," Bofeng said. "I want to buy some news from Brother Zua." "Black Wind bandits?" Zuomo stilled and then reacted. So his attackers had been the Black Wind bandits. No wonder they were so strong. His mind whirling, he quickly responded, "What news?" Bofeng started at Zuomo and said seriously, "I want to buy the position of a secret realm from Brother Zua." Zuomo's heart jumped. Secret realm. He truly was shocked by the words secret realm. Zuomo had missed the secret realm exploration after the sword test conference because he had been thrown into the sword essence formation. It had been a regret of his. He hadn't thought that he would suddenly hear information about a secret realm. Bo Feng suddenly running over to ask him the location of the secret realm. The clever Zhuemo instantly realized where the information about the secret realm would come from. The Black Wind Bandits. Definitely the Black Wind Bandits. Pu Yao reacted even more quickly than he did, and had more tricks. In the blink of an eye, he had gotten the answers he wanted from the manual laborers that were still soaking in the Black Pond. Hearing Pu Yao speak of it, Zhuemo understood the general shape of the matter, and instantly was disappointed. The first people to find the secret realm were the three of the red-robed Xiuzha. For some reason, the news had been leaked, and they were targeted by the Black Wind Bandits. However, the three were extremely slippery, and tricked the Black Wind Bandits, almost clearing out the entire secret realm before fleeing. Zhuemo finally understood why the three people had so many good items on their body. So it had been a secret realm. He had admiration and disappointment. However, a secret realm that others had gone through did not hold any attractions to him. However, he wouldn't give the information so easily to Bo Feng. The cleared-out secret realm might not have anything good, but the Ling energy of the secret realm was dense and perfect for making a residence. It was not very useful for him, but to the sect, it was very good. Bo Feng evidently wanted this secret realm. Haha, Zhuemo smiled, but his wooden expression looked very strange. How does Brother Bo want to buy it? Speaking about business, he became alert. In any case, he had the initiative. He could sell or not sell. The red-robed man and his fellows had run to Little Mountain Jia, and definitely wouldn't be coming back soon. The only people who knew the location of the secret realm were the Black Wind Bandits, but all of the Black Wind Bandits were soaking in the Black Pond. Even if he didn't sell its location to Bo Feng and sent the news back to the sect, he would get many rewards. But in the deepest part of his heart, Zhuemo didn't plan on telling the information to the sect. If it was in the past, he definitely wouldn't have hesitated in reporting the information to the sect. But the only person he missed in the sect right now was Master. The present Wukong Sword Sect was not the Wukong Sword Sect of the past, that had felt like a home. If it wasn't for Master, he wouldn't have any supplies. He wouldn't even have had the Wukong flag. If he came to such an isolated place as the desolate Wood Reef, he would have more dangers than lucky encounters. He couldn't help but ball up his hands. Destiny. It was more reliable to grasp it in his own hands. Ha ha, Bo Feng laughed lightly. He seemed to have already had a plan. I will use a piece of news to exchange with Brother Zhua. News. Bo Feng's suggestions was out of Zhuemo's expectations. Bo Feng said generously, Brother Zhua should look first. If you are not satisfied, we can keep negotiating. Finishing, his finger flicked and a jade scroll shot at Zhuemo Pia. A golden palm reached from behind Zhuemo and accurately grasped the jade scroll. Bo Feng smiled and didn't speak. Inside, he praised Zhuemo's carefulness. Zhuemo took the jade scroll and lowered his head to read. There was not much inside the jade scroll, but after reading the last word, Zhuemo felt he was in a glacier, his entire body cold. How is it? Is Brother Zhua satisfied? Bo Feng asked. Zhuemo took a deep breath, and then bowed with folded hands at Bo Feng. He said seriously, Many thanks, Brother Bo. Finishing, he took out an empty jade scroll, entered the position of the secret realm, and threw it to Bo Feng. Bo Feng took the jade scroll. After reading it, joy appeared on his face. When he finished, he crushed the jade scroll to powder. Brother Zhua is really refreshing, Bo Feng said crisply. This one wants to ask for a wisp of golden crow fire from Brother Zhua. Please help me. Golden crow fire? Zhuemo nodded. If Brother Bo has earth elemental materials above 4th grade, a deal can be made. He didn't ask for a high price. The news that Bo Feng had just given him was too important. Bo Feng could not control his joy. We really have good fate. This one luckily has a piece of breathing rock, and of high quality. It should fulfill Brother Zhua's demands. Trade. Zhuemo did not hesitate in nodding. In 4th grade earth element materials, breathing rock was a rare fine material. It usually existed in the deepest parts, a special earthy gray that naturally clung together, unable to be cut with anything metal. Zhuemo was excited. He finally gathered together everything for his 5 essence sword set. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.